Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. On today's episode of the podcast, I'm catching up with one of my good friends and long-term contributors to the show, watch manager Mike Stachowicz, aka Stacho. Mike and I go way back. Mike's a firefighter, a father, good friend, and a really great international fire behavior instructor. And a man who's probably spent more time inside burn houses, inside demo boxes, than most of us have done on some training grounds, to be honest with you. He's one of those rare voices who bridges research science and real-world fireground work. He's a fire behavior plumber in that he actually gets in there, gets his elbows in there, gets low, does the thing. He does a lot of international travel. He's the kind of person who doesn't just talk about tactics, but actually tests them as well. In our episode today, we're going to unpack loads of stuff, starting firstly with the latest trip to IFIW, which is a global gathering that brings together some incredible people, some of the sharpest minds in firefighting, people like Andy Starnes, James Mendoza, Keith Stakes, loads of other people, and many of the guests we've had on this podcast as well. We'll talk about what's new, talk about what's next, and we'll talk about what's actually working on the Fireground, including the ongoing debate around things like hose lines, international collaborations, how training philosophies are evolving. This one is a big buffet of fire behavior information, so it's full of substances. There's a few challenges in convention in the way we're doing things, and there's plenty of insights for anyone who actually wants to get better at the craft of firefighting. So it's my absolute privilege to once again welcome back to the show, Stacho. I'll see you on the other side. We've kind of turned the tide. I say we. Well, there's a massive body of people. Like the last couple of months, we've had some really interesting people privilege the UK shores, much to the hard work of people like you, Lewis, Dave, Tom. And these are people you'd spoken with years ago. I've spoken with a few years back now. And it's like so exciting to see them coming to our shores and everybody being able to start connecting the dots with, oh, wait, I heard a thing like that a while ago. I think I read that in a document somewhere. Yeah, I think I know that name. I've seen them, speak to them before. But you are one of the rare few that has still been going out there collecting the nuggets yourself as well. Because, you know, it's one thing for firefighters to sit on their bottoms. And again, the people that come to a lot of these events aren't necessarily the ones sitting on the bottoms because they've made the effort to go to those events. But still, it's like a halfway house in that people are coming to our shores and we're like, hey, do you mind driving 40 minutes to come and listen to them? And they're like, oh, Jesus Christ, that's a long way. You know, I drove 2.5 hours to get to Lancashire from here. I misread that because I was late at that event because I'd sort my daughter out in the morning. And then I was like, Jesus Christ, I'm not going to get there for 9 o'clock. And I've been there God knows how many times. I'm just a moron. But then people were coming from Scotland, or, you know, we had, there's a few people from Scotland. There was, I think there was a couple of lads from Merseyside. And you'll remember the names better than me, but some people drove a hell of a long way. Anyway, you are still going out there hunting these people. So I wanted us to get back on and talk about IFIW. We spoke about that before. Talk a little bit around international travel, what the whispers are, because people see something written in a document, but usually there's been a whisper of that at least 10 years before sometimes. Absolutely. But most of the time it's like a year ago. You must have this ongoing frustration where you see something come out in your service or see something come out nationally and you just have to grip and go, yes, that is revolutionary and innovative. And I was talking about it 10 years ago. All the time. You just have to stop yourself doing that second bit. So where you been, brother? What have you been doing?
Right. I've been everywhere. Doing
Literally
all sorts of things. So as you alluded there, I'm really excited about having people from abroad coming to us, you know, coming to teach, coming to present, and I'm actually quite jealous of the people who are getting into it now, you know, and they are exposed to this bigger fire behavior stuff, and they are exposed to all these characters that, you know, for many, many years now, probably at least 10 years now, I have been, you know, following around the world or paying my own money to see. And now suddenly over the last 2-3 years, we seem to be getting people like John McDonough, like Carol, like Lars into UK. And all you need to do, as you mentioned, sometimes it's a long drive, but it is just a drive. You know, it's a drive away, and usually it doesn't cost much, or it's even a free event, and you can expose yourself to those other ways of thinking without actually leaving the country, which few years ago we thought was essential to be exposed to some other views. And so I am really, really excited. And we just had Gerard Mann and Lucas Garden in Edinburgh the other day, which was amazing to see. And I will challenge anybody who says that firefighters are lazy, they don't want to develop themselves and all that stuff, you know, because I've organized this event and people were coming in on their days off, basically, to listen to some guys that they probably never heard of. And yet the feedback has been amazing, you know. And now this morning I had requests from guys that are on shift today to send them some copies of the presentation that Gerard and Lucas have done, because they wanted to pass it on to their watch. You know what? I need to follow up. I think Lewis is going to send me all of those, because we recorded all of the content at Lancashire's event, and we're going to put them all out as separate episodes, but freely available. I want to make, because some of those, obviously, they're delivered in person, and like with Dan's stuff, and there's elements that you need to see it. Yeah. So I want to put them in the notes. But yeah, we've got to make all of that sort of stuff. Why do you think people are so sort of tied to their own sort of beliefs or philosophies? I remember someone telling me the other day, it's because they're not logical. They said people aren't logical, they're tribal. We defend our beliefs not because necessarily they're true, but because they keep us connected to our group. And like a lot of us join the fire service because we want to be part of this massive lineage, and it's something that will live way beyond us. You know, it's like someone told me it was an eternity project the other day, and I said, no, an immortality project. And they said, yeah, people are drawn to immortality projects, whether it's a child, because the thing will live on beyond you, but they like being part of jobs that mean more than them. It's kind of why we like religion as well. We want to be part of something that's bigger than us. Yeah. And if you start to challenge that, or you start to like go, oh, I'm not quite like, you don't see religious people very typically challenging their religious book, because they'll get shunned from the group. Well, these are our religious books. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely. And you know, I think there is a lot of aspects to that. That on one hand, we are within our group, you know, we feel comfortable, and it's nice to feel right. You know, it's good to feel like somebody told me in the UK Fire Service we do this, and if that's all I've been exposed to, I'm going to maintain that's the best thing since sliced bread.
And you'll believe it's absolutely true.
Absolutely, you know, because I believe that nobody knowingly would have told me the wrong thing.
No, not our malice. Yeah.
Exactly. However, we don't maybe think that maybe that person wasn't exposed to enough in their career. Or what happens, I think, quite recently now, that the evidence has changed. The science didn't change, but we are more exposed to new experimental evidence. Yeah. And, you know, let's say in 1820 or 30, Braidwood could have told us something, and it was good advice. However, now we've got means to actually test it and come up with a theory why that advice was good, you know, to quantify it, to write a formula for it, which I'm not a fan of. But
because it's not also that he would have had that, he wouldn't have been, if he'd have asked 20 people back then, they'd probably all have had a different interpretation of what they saw. But the fact is, none of them necessarily had the scientific tools and measurement technology to be able to
Yep.
validate their belief. It was probably just the one that said it confidently enough, or the one that
Mhm.
was literate and was able to write it down. Therefore, it got
Yep.
proliferated and put into things. But now we've got the ability to measure and challenge those beliefs with academic rigor and go. So I'm not saying you're wrong, because what you're supposed to caveat every belief with is, in my limited experience, I believe
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And it's kind of offensive to say your limited experience, but we all have, everybody's experience is limited. And the more experiences you have, like someone said to me the other day, the bigger your island of knowledge, also the longer your shore of ignorance. Like the more you know, the more you go, oh shit. And I haven't got a clue. I've just literally stepped into a big hole on this journey where you go, I didn't even know that, because you never come this far down the road before.
Yeah,
And you didn't
I've
realize
had
it was a massive hole.
I've got hundreds of those moments,
Exactly.
where you
And
travel
they
somewhere.
challenge your ego though, right?
Oh,
Unless you're
absolutely.
human, and to go, shit, I don't know that. Right, I'm a
Yeah.
student again. Teach me, please.
It's all that, and John McDonough talks about it a lot, where
Yeah.
where the ignorance is bliss period of his life, that we were basically kicking the doors down, putting the fires out, be quick, be macho, and we thought we were brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that we weren't.
No.
However, then you get exposed to other outlooks, to other theories, to science,
Yeah.
and suddenly you realize, if you humble enough, you realize that, wow, we were just getting away with it. We
That's what Dan
we,
says, isn't it? He said it again. We get away with it until we don't. Until you get the black swan event that falls through the Swiss cheese. But then we can write them off and go, oh, well, Fugazi,
never gonna happen again.
it was a different thing. It was, and you go, well, maybe. Or maybe we were doing it wrong. Dan's actually really good at that. But I wonder when he delivered in Lancashire, sorry, my brain's going to jump all over the place. But
then go for it.
He said and I'll misquote him, sorry, Dan, if you listen to this, but he said something to the effect of we need to retrain the last 15 to 20 years of firefighters, which is almost a silly thing to say. It doesn't make it true.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that the people that have learned, because you don't want this to be an accusation where you go, you've been in the job 20 years, you know nothing. And you're, well, hang on a minute, also you don't want to switch off your audience. Dan's way more knowledgeable than me, but there's a balance to be found somewhere there. He does want to take people with him. He's about to kick off some great work, which we'll go on to in a little bit. But how do you balance that when you come back into the organization you work for and talk about, oh guys, how do you stimulate curiosity rather than coming back going, that's BS. You haven't got a clue. Do you know what I mean?
I think part of the problem is, and what Dan alludes to, is also the belief that nothing of it was done intentionally wrong. We were acting in best interest of the UK Fire Service, and whether that meant going to Sweden in the late 90s, early 2000s and bringing something back and then trying to disseminate that over the UK Fire Service.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it turned into a little bit of Chinese whispers, and only few people were in Sweden. Some of it got lost in translation. Then it was passed on a few times through different UK fire services, and we've ended up what we've ended up with, which is kind of the model, not really Swedish model, but not American model.
I had a very real life experience of that when I went over to the smoke cooling experiments, because people have said to me when at various places, they're like, oh yeah, I saw you went to the smoke cooling experiments. Tell me what the takeaways were. And my first thing I always say is, the document will be out soon, read that. Not because I wasn't there, I was there and you see my little pictures in it. But my memory is shit. It's fairly okay. But also, if I just came back and told you, and we then wrote some guidance based on what I told you, I would get stuff wrong. Of course I would. That's why we're supposed to write it down and make sure we embed all of those lessons. So when I come back and go, oh, actually, yeah, straight stream's better for A, B, C, and X, Y, Z. It's not that smoke cooling doesn't have its benefits, but when we tested it in this, it didn't work, and it was only effective as an advancement tool, blah, 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 blah. I will fill that with some word salad, and I will misinterpret my memory. So you need to. Yeah, you need to back it up with that, because we came back with a tool from somewhere in our suitcase, and then a tool from another place in our suitcase, and we tried to plug it into our computer, if you will, and then go, I think it kind of works like this. But then when you meet the person that invented it, they go, oh, you're fucking using that wrong. That's not. I
Yeah,
mean, I get that you're making it work, but
and
that's not actually what we intended to design it for.
yeah, and it's a funny interpretation because I read that book recently and I can't remember what it was, but they were talking about the power of practice. You know how we always say that 10,000 hours will make you expert in whatever field.
Bounce.
Although
Syeds, yeah.
yes, what was mentioned in that book, then it was mentioned again in another one that I recently read. But they were saying, and they given an example that if you practice golf, for example, and you'll do your 10,000 hours, then you're going to be pretty decent. But you need to be able to be exposed to the feedback, to instant feedback, that when you see where the ball landed, then you can adjust your next swing. However, if you were to practice golf in the dark, you could be practicing for 20 years and not get any better.
Yeah.
And I think that's what kind of was happening, that we were practicing a lot of stuff, but maybe it wasn't the right stuff to practice. We got our containers, we put some fire in it, and we squirted some water into the overhead. But is that what we were trying to achieve? What was the practice of squirting water into the gases something that we can then translate into our firefighting operations? Especially when we were sat in front of the fire and doing that. I think a lot of it kind of went down those training scars kind of route, and I've seen them at incidents, where I have seen firefighters sitting in a position where they could hit the fire and yet cooling what's above them.
Dan's got loads of examples from some of the Welsh stuff that he did, and the reports back from the BA teams and the location that they were in and what they were doing. And like you say, someone mentioned to me the other day when I was in the gym training with a boxer, and he was going hell for leather on this bag, and I was like, that's fucking really cool. Like, you must be, I didn't say it in this way, but I was like, how long you been boxing, blah 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 blah. And he was like, dude, the bag doesn't hit back. It was like, this is a bit performative. He said, I'm not throwing salt on boxers online, but when you see a boxer, going hell for leather on a speed bag or whatever, he says that's good, but it doesn't make them a good fighter. Because the bag's never going to hit them back. He says, I spar maybe once or twice a week, but I do this every day because it's a productive drill, as is like what we're doing. They're productive tools in the right environment, but when it's not the utopia. You actually you're interacting with a very complex system, i.e. when you're fighting. This episode is brought to you in partnership with Godiva Limited. Godiva is one of the world's leading providers of specialist equipment for emergency services market. Godiva produces a comprehensive range of fire pumps, including vehicle-mounted, portable, and their cutting-edge integrated total water flow control system, SAMFlows. I've been using Godiva my entire career as a reliable pump on the Fireground. It is such a crucial element of a successful firefighting team that you want to empower your crews with the very best, reliable, quality product. Reach out to our partners by checking the notes in the podcast. Now back to the show.
Kind of segueing from that, and what I will mention, and maybe we've mentioned Dan, and I will just mention one thing that I love Dan, and we've spoke many times, and I really am behind all the work that he's doing currently within the UK.
However's a good.
I am absolutely against 51 mil hoses. This is
controversial.
If I want to appeal to anybody who's responsible for
are you against it because it's not quite where you want it to be, i.e. you want it to be 38s, 45s, whatever, or are you against it because you just believe in reducing the size of the line is not the way we need to go, or you don't think that's far enough? Or I'm probably getting into a point you are going to expand on in a bit, but you've triggered me now.
Well, so, I would start with, why do we think we need 52 or 51 mil hose? Where did that come from, that need? And obviously we started with hose reels, usually 19 mil hose reels, and we thought we need more, which is absolutely correct. However, then we said, how do we get people away from hose reels and into the lay flat? which is hard enough, and we know that. We've been struggling with that for the last 20, 30 years. So one aspect of it is we are already struggling with getting people from 19 mil to 45 lay flat.
Right.
Which I think going even bigger to 51 will discourage that transition as opposed to encourage it.
Yeah.
If my choice is 19 mil or 51, I think I'll take 19.
I know what you're saying. If you're proposing that as the only option for people that are unfamiliar with there being more options, it's like I said, Mike, we need to get you in the gym more. But your interpretation of the gym is it starts at a 200 kilo deadlift. You're like, well, I'm not going to do that, Pete. I understand with the principle that you're saying I need to do a bit more, whatever. But if you're framing that as this is the only alternative, then I'm not going to do it.
So now where we are is so much further to where we want to be. Before those 2 points were much closer together.
Yeah.
It was easier to venture from 19 mil to 45 rather than go all the way to 51. But then the practical applications of it, with a 45, I can probably flow 500 liters a minute, easy. And I don't know when or where would I need that extra water.
Is there an argument because the 52s are more ubiquitous in the UK Fire and Rescue Service? Because if we're looking in your shed and we go, what we really need, Mike, is one of these, i.e. a 45 or a 38, but you go, well, I've only got, and we go, well, okay, can I encourage you to switch to that? Because then you haven't got to purchase a lot more stuff. I don't know. You probably know from the WhatsApp group the levels of services that have. Because usually if they were using lay flats, they'd just be using it for, a covering jet or a main jet or, setting up a ground monitor or something like that. They go, no, that's for big water. I'm never going to take it internal. So maybe services progressively got rid of the smaller lay flats. I don't know. Maybe you can speak to that.
Well, there was a kind of drive across the UK to switch to 51s that Paul Grimwood was propagating. However, that was purely based on high-rise application to eliminate the need or to reduce the friction loss of the 45 hose and get higher flows at higher floors and higher pressure at higher floors. So that was, but let's say in my fire service or a lot of in the UK, our high-rise packs are completely separate. We don't use the hose in the high-rise packs for anything else. No.
Yeah.
So
we have Cleveland roll specifically just for that. It only comes off for that, and you take it with the high-rise bag, and that's what you do. You don't really mess about with it.
I would absolutely agree and be in favor of having a 51 in the high-rise bag.
Yeah.
However, for general application, obviously, we need to admit it's going to be heavier than 45. I was just about to do the maths, but I forgot how much heavier it should be. Obviously, it's going to be more difficult to maneuver.
With the tools that we're currently using, this is why I would love to see hose snaggers in every UK fire and rescue service. Just as one tool. I mean, you could just force people to adopt more of the 3-point stance and train that muscle memory about how to move with it. But I feel like we would need to give them better tools to be able to do that, and that would maybe reduce that behavioral friction.
I think we need to ask ourselves, how much water do I want to have stepping through the front door? And if the answer is, again, somebody needs to be semi-qualified to answer that question. But if you want to say it's 100 liters, then probably you're not in the ballpark. Yeah. But if you're going to say anything from 3 to 5, I'll be happy with that. However, we will encourage the firefighters to not do gas cooling with more than probably 200 to 220, because then you get a lot of nozzle reaction and all that stuff. It's just not, and the droplets are getting bigger the higher flow you go. So you want to cool with 100, 200 liters a minute. So that's
why that
majority.
Much? Take us to the science behind why that is the case.
Right. So the higher the pressure we can get, the smaller the droplet, and lower flow, the smaller the droplet. And obviously we want to have not as small a droplet as possible, because then they don't have mass to travel through the hot gases far enough to cool. They evaporate too quickly. However, we want them to be small enough to have more surface area to be able to take the energy away from the gases. And the higher up you go, if you've got in your service, you've got a branch with adjustable settings, and you'll do a few pulses, rev your pump up to, I don't know, 7-8 bar, and do a couple of pulses on 115. If you've got a delta attack branch, which is quite popular in the UK, do it on 100. I think the lowest setting is 125. Do a couple of pulses on that, and then change to 250, and you will immediately notice that the droplets got bigger, heavier. So, and then you turn to 375. Again, that same thing's going to happen. However, now you will also notice the hose will start kind of dancing a lot, because you're now stopping very momentarily that big amount of water, big mass is flowing at certain velocity, and you're stopping it. So the more of that mass is flowing, if you turn it to 500, then it's going to affect the hose reaction even more. So it's just not practicable. It's not something you would want to do. And after all, to send the water into the gases, you don't need much of it. As probably Carol Lambert or John McDonough will work it out, you probably only need 100 liters a minute to do it. But that 100 liters a minute is the minimum required if you're 100% effective. So, and we are not going to be, because we can't see, because it's difficult, because the heat ceiling could be high. We just don't have, we can't adjust for every parameter because we are going in blind. So you want that margin of error. And then on top of that, you want a margin of error just in case there will be the window will break, somebody opens up another door somewhere. Basically, the ventilation profile will change and the heat release rate will increase. So you want to be ready to have the margin of another, let's say, 200 liters to be able to flow 400 in total to get that.
Dan uses a 350 liter per minute for, I think he gives it as a 75 square meter compartment. So he references that as Paul's tactical flow rate formula. But then he still pushes for that 22 mil high pressure, 52 low pressure as like a positive balance between that mobility and flow.
And so 22 mil hose reels, for many years, I was a big fan of them. And because I was saying, if our troops don't want to use lay flat 45, let's at least give them 22. So they're not going in with 100 liters a minute, they go in with 230, let's say, out of 22 mil hose reel. So at least we've got something. But now I'm thinking that if we want to encourage 45, and according to our SOPs, we should take lay flat hose into every structure fire, then I'm slightly worried that maybe 22 can kind of dilute that.
The SOPs in the organisation you work for?
Yes.
I was about to say, because that won't be standard across the UK fire service.
So our local SOPs.
I don't want people going to NOG and then going, that's bullshit.
No. Our SOPs require us to use a 45 in our case, or lay flat basically for interior firefighting.
Is there an argument as well that the added benefit of effective water mapping through transitional prior to entry as well? Because if you're trying to do that with a hose reel, the water mapping effectiveness is going to be quite limited.
Yes. And
is it because that's not really embedded either? I know, that's another piece of work that yourself, Dave, Lewis and Dan are trying to. Dave showed that new rig. I've not actually been. Have you seen the new rig?
The UL water mapping prop thing.
Yeah.
The little shed.
The little shed. How rude. 13 grand, I think that costs. It's a lot for a shed, isn't it?
Barry's shed.
Barry's shed with the PVC and the plexiglass. It looked good. It's a great teaching tool. I'm not sure how long it will last. I'm not sure what the weatherproofing on that is. But anyway.
I have written here on my notes that so now Manchester's got one, South Wales or one of the Welsh services has one.
Yes, I think they've just finished construction on it, as they were saying.
there's one in the college as well.
Is there?
And yeah.
Oh, I didn't say I was at the college. National Beer Challenge of the Week. I didn't even see it.
All right, yeah, I've used it in the college last year, 2 years ago. 2 years ago.
Okay, not bad.
The one in the college was the first one in the UK. I think
Good to give credit.
Dave Payton got a lot to answer.
Recording with Dave next week. I'll ask him again about that.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's definitely there. And so I wrote this on my little notes here that I would love to see it in every service. You know, it's a cheap investment. I know, 15 grand shed is not cheap, but in the grand scheme of training budgets, it's very cheap. And
do you think we could retrofit some of the porter cabins that you see in a lot of services? They've already got windows in them. I appreciate they weren't built to be filled with water, but they're going to get rid of them anyway. I thought about that when I was at a different service recently, and I looked at one of they had 2 old porter cabins, and I thought you could use them for water mapping.
Yeah, but you see, having a window is one thing, but you want to see the effect of the water all across the boundary walls. So to appreciate it a bit more, I think. It helps, and I think Dave, what Dave's done, because the UL provides the plans for the little shed,
freely available, yeah.
Yes, and Dave has modified his to that the plexi is also in the bottom, because the UL thing is only the window height is the plexi, and then the bottom half is plywood, and I think Dave modified his that it's plexi everywhere. So you can actually see somebody crawling through it, or whatever else, and it's actually I think it's quite a decent modification. Yeah. And they've done a flat roof instead of pitched roof, but then that doesn't really make much difference. But it works out cheaper. So yeah, and it's such a versatile prop. You can teach hydraulic ventilation in it. You can teach exterior attack. You can picture the movement of air through it, especially if you use a bit of theatrical smoke in there. It's just so, and it helps people visualize things. I've done it recently with
kinesthetic learners. We need to see it.
Absolutely. I've done it recently with my watch, where I was explaining hydraulic ventilation and exterior attack, that from exterior attack you want to have a straight stream or jet from, if you're putting water from inside out, i.e. hydraulic ventilation, you want to have it as a cone. And just to show them that, we went inside the station and started flowing water from the inside out, but I fitted the smoke curtain behind me in the door of the room that we were in, and obviously left that door open. So every time I was changing into wide angle, the smoke curtain was fluttering. And they, after the kind of the drill we've done, they said that, now it just makes sense now. It's no longer a thing that I need to remember that, or I need to use this cone or that cone. It's just something now that I know. It's already logged in there because I've seen it happening. So it's not like, Staco told me that this is what's going to happen. No, I now know that it's happening.
So just slow down, throw all this back on the table. Okay. And I appreciate I've done this to you through leading you into this rabbit hole. That's my fault. Connect the dots for us just back between higher flow rate, what is water mapping, external, offensive, and what that's actually going to do, and how that ties into hydraulic ventilation. Because people might only remember hydraulic ventilation as pointing something out from the room of origin and doing it that way.
So let's do higher flows and exterior attack. Higher flow rates. Another problem that I have recently heard of a service that is mandating or thinking to mandate that you should be going into interior structures only with the bigger branch. So not 500, but maybe 750.
Like the Saberjet.
Yeah.
Christ alive. Okay.
So then, and I'm of the opinion, and again, that goes back to Dan's 51 mil hoses, that if your guys suck with 45, I can tell you they're not going to be any good with 51.
Fair point.
So and the main example or main argument I hear from guys for using the hose reel is saying because it's quicker. And yeah, it could be. But then my question is always, how often do you train with a lay flat hose? And then they say, ever, no, never.
Mhm.
And because even when we use it for maybe BA exercises sometimes, just to throw it something a bit harder in, we start with all the holes already laid out, and kind of pre-flaked outside the BA burn room or whatever. And then when everybody's ready, then we start the evolution. So now I've started with my shift. We go to the burn building and we start from the truck. So basically we've arrived and you have to do everything. You have to set up your own hose, flake it the way you want to be flaked, and set everything up as per the incident. So we're practicing those skills pre-entry to the building, as well as actually then searching and applying water inside. So then going the other way, flowing a lot of water, I think we are trying to be more American than Americans. When I was at the IFIW, I had a great chance to go to incidents with firefighters in New York on one of their engines, and then also in Boston. And what I was noticing there, they were flowing. They were using 1 3/4 inch hose, so our 45 basically, and they were flowing about 600 liters a minute on their first line. And I would be very careful with us trying to outflow the Americans, because they have practiced this stuff for years. I know that it seems
also
easy.
their mains flow higher anyway.
Yes, and
So
and
we
and,
can't
and
actually,
I'll
achieve
mention
it.
that because it looks easy when they do it, but hauling a big line is not easy. They are very, very heavy. And if you want to flow big water, you need bigger firefighters who'll be able to haul that hose. You need bigger hoses. You need bigger fire trucks with more water on them, because otherwise you'll run out very quickly. You need bigger hydrants, as you mentioned, and you need a lot more training. Like the. Am I saying too much? I feel like I am.
No.
The Americans have this thing where they give you kudos for being good on the hose and on the nozzle. It doesn't really exist in the UK or in Europe for that matter.
No.
Because we think of moving hose as something easy, that it just happens. Because we're used to because we used to
Hose reels.
To hose reels, there is no finesse in it. There is no skill. You just grab it and it goes. But then when you introduce a bigger hose, then you need to have some kind of training and practice, the muscle memory to kick in to accommodate that. And there's no other way apart from reps. So that's my view on the big water. Let's not go too mental. Let's be really good at it with 45 and flow 400-500 liters a minute if we need to, because again, let's not just cool with it at those flows.
So in order to achieve good water mapping from an external, what is that? Why would we do it? And how would the way in which we apply it, i.e. straight stream or a cone of some matter, why would that? Because there's almost a thing that we don't really do it now because it's not as effective, because we're attempting to do it with a reel, and we might be attempting to do it with a reel on a 30-degree cone.
So the water mapping terminology came from the UL. So Underwriter Laboratories, Fire Safety Research Institute. That's what they call these days. And they've done tests where ultimately they've flown different flow rates into the window of the room, and at different angles, at different cone settings, and they measured. They basically drew a grid on the floor and had a little bottles, if you like, collecting water from each little bit of the grid. There was like a foot by foot grid across the floor, and all that water was flowing into those bottles. And then at the end, they measured where the water was after each exercise. And depending on where you were flowing the water, whether you were flowing at the back wall, at the ceiling, at the sides, whether it was wide or narrow, then they've agreed at the end that the best way to achieve the equal coverage of the room with water was flowing it on the jet and as steep an angle as possible. So that's what initially was termed water mapping, as in putting the water in the most efficient way to cover the room.
It's like a deliberate, measured process of applying water where it will do the most thermal work. It is beyond a privilege to be able to bring the Firefights podcast to you, and we are so grateful for every single person that supports, listens, shares, and follows our journey. But here's the honest truth. It takes a colossal amount of time and work to keep the podcast going. And to help us keep doing it, create more, reach more guests internationally, and make the podcast sustainable, we're asking for you to help. And to do this, we've set up a Patreon page. Now, by joining this, you'll not only support the future of the podcast, but also gain access to exclusive benefits. Now, if you've ever wanted to meet a member of the podcast, buy us a beer, buy us a coffee, and you think anything you've ever listened to on the podcast has been worth £3, that's basically what we're asking you for. By joining our Patreon community, you will get access to every single full episode archive we have ever made. Now, hundreds and hundreds of key documents that we've got in there on fire behavior, firefighter health, cancer risks, instant debriefs, and so much more. So if you feel like you want to join the Patreon crew and help us make this possible, head to patreon.com/TFFPC or check the link in any episode podcast notes.
Absolutely.
How it interacts with the environment, whether it's just the hot gases, the burning surfaces, or equally the compartments geometry. So I think I first saw it from NIST. I always forget what NIST stands for, but
NIST is basically like pre-UL. NIST was doing all those tests.
Was it right? Because that was Keith Stakes and Steve Kerber, and there was another one, Dan something or other. Man, memory's failing me a little bit.
Yeah,
that's probably why I didn't remember it. Because it's a tough one. They did their studies, didn't they?
They certainly did.
Yeah.
So what you're looking for is, by hitting that jet onto the ceiling at a steep angle, is you're creating like a sprinkler effect. It spreads in all directions, covering the fuels sufficiently. And then from then on, the argument started that obviously this was mainly designed to do it if your fire is on the first floor, second floor, or whatever. If it's on the ground floor, just stick a branch through a window and put it out. But so then the argument was proposed, if that works from the outside, when you're doing it to the first floor flat, let's say, why will it not work internally if I go in and put that jet at the ceiling? Of course, it has to work. Maybe it's not the most efficient, but it's definitely effective. If you flow a lot of water in a jet pattern onto the ceiling, it will break up. It will break up into droplets. The droplets will cool the gases. All the heavy droplets that fall to the floor will cover the fuels, stop paralyzing, and put any fires out.
It's also very easy to train.
It's very easy to. I don't want to maybe sell it too short, because then you need to hold a big line if you want to do that. But again,
not for the external attack, you don't.
No.
But yeah,
you're right.
I appreciate. Right. Yeah, then when you're, but even if there's a worst case scenario, we just see it adopted more heavily with that main jet that's sat outside doing nothing. Yeah. People put down there because it says they need to do it in the SOP, but they still sent the team in with the 22 or the 19. But I wonder if some of them still aren't doing that because of the hydraulic ventilation element.
It's a funny, again, going back to UL, they've done further tests, and you can find all that on YouTube. I think if you even put something like UL pushing fire, you'll find what I'm talking about. Is they've tested whether the wider cone will cover the surfaces in the room better or not. And obviously, with wider cone, what we do, and I think it was been misunderstood in the UK for many years, that we didn't realize that when we do hydraulic ventilation from the inside out, we move a lot of air. And everybody knew that. We were fine with that. But nobody thought that if we do it from the outside in, the same thing happens. We're pumping the building full of fresh air from the outside, and we're moving the fire gases, pushing them through the building. So that's the problem of applying wide-angled water into the window from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
We're over-pressurizing that compartment, pushing the gases somewhere else into the building,
Mm-hmm.
and sealing that outlet so the smoke now can't leave through that window. It
Mm-hmm.
has to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So again, if you're putting water from the outside, jet.
I've just found some of the references for it, so I've just copied them because I'll put them in a link to people. So we've got UL's FSRA impact of fire attack utilizing interior and exterior streams on firefighting safety and occupant survival. That was Kerber in 2013. We've got the NIST technical note 1797, fire dynamics simulation in residential structures, which was also with Madzikowski. Paul's work, Paul Grimwood, fog attack and tactical flow rate studies. Actually, Ben Walker and Sharon Raffel also reference it in their Reading Fire 2017, integration of flow and ventilation cues, and also in their volume 2. There's a section on flow rate, droplet behavior, and surface cooling. So we'll copy them into the below. Sorry to interrupt you, but I know I hate not giving people the references because they ask for them.
what I will say, the term transitional attack, and I know it already embedded itself in the UK. I know some services are using that terminology. However, when I was in the US recently and I spoke with Keith Stakes, who was obviously one of the authors of that project, they are trying to get away from calling it transitional attack now because it introduced a lot of confusion, especially in America, that some departments, and to put a context, in America there is about, or in the US, there's about 30,000 separate fire departments, going from the massive ones like FDNY to ones that only have one station and it's full of volunteers. So it introduced some confusion because people interpreted it as that you need to transition the same line of hose from the outside to the inside. So they were arguing, if there is a fire coming out at the back of the building, it will take me a long time to stretch the line to the back, put some water into the window, and then drag that line to the front of the building to go inside.
Okay, yeah. Assuming you have one line only, but yeah.
Yeah. Which normally they do in America. They stretch their attack line, and that's that. However, for us, it's maybe not as confusing because we can do multiple lines. We can the driver can grab a hose reel, as you mentioned, and can stick it in the window or whatever is need to be done. So now they just calling it exterior attack as opposed to transitional. So we're not transitioning with that line from.
How do you push back on the concern around, as I heard it mentioned again the other day during a breakout session, the risk on casualties and the effects of steam and you're poaching the casualties? That is sometimes a commonly trotted out reason. Yeah.
So in this study you mentioned, of the UL that you just recited, there is a occupant survivability bit in there.
Yep.
And basically what they've done there, they've put they use different tactics, obviously constructed buildings, set them on fire, and put loads of a lot of sensors in them, measuring the temperatures, heat release rate, heat flux at different height within the building. We had gas monitors, measuring the levels of oxygen, carbon monoxide, and other gases. And also, they had samples of pig skin, which is the closest thing you can get to human skin, human flesh, placed on different surfaces, on the bed, on the floor, and all that stuff. And then analyzed what damage was done to that flesh. And in none of the experiments that involved putting the water from the outside in form of a jet, the temperatures went higher, or there was the condition to the let's say the casualties worsened.
There was no evidence that it did.
No.
Yeah.
If there was steam created in the room, because you're not sealing the window you're putting jet through, that steam can escape. Because it's obviously hot gas, it just flows out along with the other gases. You know, it's not going to travel along the whatever.
If you turn it into a
building.
gas, it's going to do that expansion, look for a path of least resistance. It's going to go out the window that's already there, assuming you haven't encapsulated it in a fog.
Exactly.
You've still given
Yeah. If you do, then you will push all that steam and fire gases.
That will continue to support and perpetuate that belief, which might be what they're doing.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I have heard many people, especially in the UK, saying that, "Oh, I have experienced it."
Yeah, that's the problem.
And I told people not to put water from the outside because I was on the receiving end of that. So don't tell me this or that.
And that's hard. It's hard because that is a felt experience.
But it is not the fault of the tactics of putting the water from the outside. It's the fault of the application that people are not trained to do it properly. They didn't know that there is a difference in whether we put it on the jet or a spray. So that's what we need to work for, not binning the valid tactics. And when also the temperatures, you know, in those UL experiments, the temperatures across the structure, not only in the fire room, dropped instantly as the water was applied. So even if the casualty was remote from the fire room, the temperatures still went down significantly. So even if we, you know, and I hate that sometimes I've seen different fire services doing the water application or water over application thing in a container. They'll close up the containers, put some water in there everywhere, create steam, and then say to trainees,
and then say, right, you just watch the temperature probe. See me? I'm putting water in through this little hole in the side against this really hot steel that we've been burning all morning. Just before we leave, we're not going to do any more wears. Let me just demonstrate what does happen to you if you put too much water in. See? Imagine yourself in there now. And I'm like, whoa.
No. But you see, the problem with that is that it's done with the trainees inside. And the experience, what they're experiencing is increase in heat.
Yeah, they sit at the front of the demo box and they close up the back of it. And the person at the front, they say, don't put too much water on. And then when they do, they go, can everybody feel that? Oh, it's coming down on top of you. And you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
But believe me,
that's the felt reality.
If you're going to do the demo box with the back door closed, even without applying too much steam,
it's going to get fucking hot.
Still going to get hot. But another thing is that, and I hate when instructors will say that, you see, we've put plenty of steam in and it got hotter. No, it didn't get hotter. You know, it's impossible to put cold liquid onto the gas and for that gas to get hotter.
Yeah.
It's just physically impossible. So we feel it hotter because it's got more moisture in the air and it goes through our gear quicker, but it doesn't get hotter. So another argument with the UL thing is, you know, what is better for the casualty? You know, 500-degree fire gases or 100-degree steam?
And that's Guy Lusick's law, isn't it?
I don't know.
When the volume of gas...
Now you got me.
When the volume of gas is held constant, the pressure of that gas is directly proportional to its temperature. So if you seal it, and then you throw water into it and it starts to increase the pressure, it's proportional to the temperature because you're not giving it anywhere to go. I need to do a little 10-minute individual thing on this. So I just realized the other day we haven't done any on Boyle's law or Guy Lusick's law, and I was like, they might be boring to some people, but if you can connect the dots, it's nice to understand some of the science.
And recently when we were talking with Lucas Garden and with Gerard, we were talking about inverse square law. Yes. And I'm just throwing that in there because it just popped into my head. But another argument for staying low in fires is the inverse square law. So mainly used in radiation, that if you if you double the distance you are from the radiation will reduce 4 times. So if your radiation source is the smoke, is the radiated heat from the smoke at the ceiling, keep yourself away from it as far
Time distance shielding is what we talk about
Exactly that.
in radiation, isn't it?
Exactly that.
And we need to apply that because radiation is actually just the second part of the sentence. Are you saying thermal radiation? Are you saying chemical radiation? Because all of them have the same elements of time, distance, and shielding.
Absolutely.
It's just we only ever speak it a bit when we talk about hazmat courses and radiation of alpha, beta, gamma, all that jazz.
Yeah, but that's still radiation. So get away from it.
Someone tried to use the inverse square law with me the other day when we were doing a water strategy. And I said to them about, we only had one inlet on the truck. And I said about putting this big external collecting coupling that could bring 4 lines into one. And we were going to use 2 LPPs out of I said, well, let's switch this because we're trying to get more volume of water. We'll use 2 LPPs and we'll feed 4 64s into this. And then we'll get higher volume. And he said, no, you won't. You'll get a quarter of the volume because of the frictional loss. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, the inverse square law. And he sort of threw that buzzword bingo in there. And I said, no. So what will happen is, like in simple maths, if we were simple maths, so if we had 200 litres a minute coming through all 4 of those lines, yes, I agree, we wouldn't get 800 out. What you'd end up getting is actually you lose a quarter, so you'd probably get 600. But by doubling it up to have 4 lines versus 2, yes, you won't get double the water, but that doesn't mean don't do it. You will still lose more through frictional loss because they're all going to still come into that that single length at the end. But you will still see a proportionate increase in flow. It just won't be that the math doesn't straight through math because of the frictional loss. I agree, but I think people have a misinterpretation of the inverse square law when they apply it to flow because it doesn't. I think he just made a bit of
confusions.
There's
a lot of confusion about that.
Yeah, because that's when people go, it doesn't make any difference because I'm going to reduce it down to a 45 at the end. I'm like, no, it will make a difference. It will make a difference.
A brilliant book about this, and we already included it in the notes before on previous episodes, is the Water and Other Extinguishing Agents from Stefan Sarkvist, maybe? And that's a brilliant book and explains that very thing, especially when you do like water relays and all that, why twinning the lines or even more reduces the friction loss, so then you can pump further. You can have your water relay pumps, intermediate pumps, let's say double the distance if you twin the lines, because then you can pump further because
that's the open relay. Yeah.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I love that stuff.
We did laugh. Dave actually gave an example around when he was talking about evolution of his career. You've probably seen it when he says, when I joined 20 years ago, we were taking a triple X off, putting it into a little triangle, and making a little bath, put water in the bath to pump water out of the bath. And he says 20 years later, we're still teaching recruits, put it in the bath to take it out of the bath, which was a facetious, funny little thing, which I've never used operationally now because we have big dams in the organization that I work for. But it's still, I think it's still worth learning. It's not necessarily. I think probably we need to get rid of the improvised dams because the only place we still use them is for interim decon.
Right. Okay.
And actually you can just buy something that's, 80 quid
it's
for you to
piece
just
of
pop up
equipment
and stand in.
That is so cheap relatively.
Yeah.
And it already exists.
Yeah.
That there is no justification of making one up with another 5 bits of equipment.
No.
Another one of my pet hates is improvised monitors.
So going into the pure regs, we took out improvised monitors from our foundational training.
We don't carry ground monitors on every pump.
Do you not carry dedicated? We've got dedicated like goosenecks, just like red ones with a plate attached to the bottom of them, which gives them like a 45 degree angle. Because people don't know that pure is provision of work equipment regulations, isn't it? And when we were tying things to ladders and tying things to a shovel to get a bit of a spray or a bit of a whatever, if you damage it or it hurts you, you will not be protected because you're not using that equipment for the reason in which it was designed.
Absolutely.
Which I used to, I do like improvised ground monitor
Absolutely,
training
yeah.
because it's a good thought exercise, and it goes to
Yeah.
that firefighter solution mindset thingy
But
bob
then
of it. But you
it,
can't get away with using them anymore, really.
it annoys me when we are at a big job, and we have to rob 2 pumps of the whole host of equipment just to create something that already exists, and
Yeah.
it's run of the mill a bit of tool that we should have, and
Mhm.
yet we stuck in 1970s where we're gonna construct something with a piece of string and the chewing gum, and it's just
Should we go back to some more of Dan's work? I don't want to skip straight away, actually,
yeah.
because let's go. No, should
Oh,
we go back to some of your travels? Because
before
there's
we go, I will because we mentioned UL so much,
Mhm.
I will tell you about this. They produced a little booklet, which is called, I don't know if people will be able to see that or not. I will tell you.
We'll put
It's
it on.
called Evidence-Based Considerations for Your Fireground Playbook. And basically, it's like all their experiments and all their tactical advice and provisions put into one. So it's every experiment they carried out and what the findings were, and it's all there. So and it's pretty short. It's only like maybe 20 pages or something. 31 pages.
Just found that link for it. You can't buy it, can you?
No, it's available. You can download it from UL website.
Let me find that link.
We were given it, obviously, already.
I know you were.
Because we are special, but
you're special.
because we would never find where to. Yeah, we would never know where to find it. So that's why they've given us some.
Yeah, when you say the UL website, though, it's not actually called the UL website, is it? That's what I always forget. It's FSRI.
FSRI, yeah.
.org. So it's evidence-based considerations for your Fireground playbook.
Yes.
I am going to steal that link and I'm going to drop it in. You can download it for free. If people look under here, I'll add that onto the list because that's a great shout. I'm glad you reminded that one.
Yeah, and it's funny. Maybe we need to come clean a little bit with the listeners because I feel like we already talked about this. I shouldn't be talking about this.
Go on.
But we have talked about this with Pete, but then our previous chat got disappeared into the ether somewhere.
People think I am a walking bin fire. I am a fucking.
It's quite funny because now I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I'm not going to mention this because we already talked about that previously.
Yeah. We recorded all of this about a month or two ago. And then when I start trying to be clever, well, I'm not actually very IT literate, I completely messed this one up and lost it. Like even with Dave's episode. So we put part 1 of Dave's out and it wasn't until I remembered that I was going to see him again. I went, well, I didn't even put part 2 out. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. It's just... But that's where I would say to people, someone way better than me should be doing this because I am literally fumbling my way through.
Oh,
but don't make any assumptions. Let's make sure we cover all those bases. So I've put that playbook in there as well. One of the things we did speak about, which I found really interesting when we were last talking together, James Mendoza.
Oh, James Mendoza, yes. Lovely guy.
Please cover who that is. Because it was a new name to me when we last mentioned it, and I wrote it down in my notes because I wanted to go over him again. You met him at IFIW this year, didn't you?
Oh, I've met him over the last 3 IFIWs, yeah.
Okay. Who is he?
So James Mendoza is a captain, I would like to think. Captain or lieutenant, I think captain, in San Jose Fire Department in California. He is a graduate of Stanford University. Very smart guy, and he's a lovely, lovely, lovely person. He teaches in his organization. He teaches fire behavior and fire tactics, and he's a very good dancer.
He's a great kisser.
Yeah,
very soft hands.
So James presented during IFIW a class on fire behavior, which was very interesting. But also, he used to be, before he became a firefighter, he used to be a teacher and like a primary school teacher. So he's done a lot of teaching qualifications, and he is very, very smartly applying all he had learned teaching children to now teaching firefighters, because probably it's not that far away from each other.
He holds
So
a master's from the Stanford Graduate School of Education
yeah, he's
and a BS in microbiology and immunology.
a
My
clever
lord.
cookie, that boy.
He is, isn't he? He's a captain. Yeah,
Yeah,
captain training officer,
captain.
San
Yeah.
Jose. California was beautiful. I've never been. It's on
No,
my
I've
list.
never been. I've never
I
been.
want to go there. Anyway, carry on. So what did you learn from James?
So what did I learn from James? He's done a very, very clever class at IFIW where he handed us, and bear with me with this, he handed us crayons and bits of paper. Nobody ate any, so it's fine.
That'd be my first step. Can I have some more, please?
And basically, we were doing like a mock fire behavior class, very, very basic.
Mm-hmm.
And we were drawing things, and then we were debating what color the fire should be, and we're going to put a little chair, and then we would put there are convective currents here, and what color do you think they should be? And basically for maybe an hour we had fun and we were putting all the terminology that sealing jets and convective currents and pyrolysis and all that stuff, and that chair is probably about 3 megawatts of heat release rate. And basically we've made, by the end of the session, everybody made a little drawing of a basic room fire.
Nice.
And it was amazing how easy it was then to recall those. Some of the terminology, majority terminology, I knew before, but some of it wasn't, and it was much easier to recall that terminology because you're not basically. If I told you, once the smoke hits the ceiling and starts spreading out, that's called a sealing jet, and that's fine. You can take it or leave it. But if we mention that that's a sealing jet, and then for next maybe 2 minutes I am busy drawing that sealing jet, it somehow stucks in your memory, and you spending on each aspect of the drawing, you're spending a little bit of time, and it's not just mentioning passing. And it was quite amazing how a room full of international fire instructors were quiet for an hour, and everybody was drawing their little chair and stuff. And he even says, and I don't know how true that is, because I can imagine what response I would get in my station, that he would then afterwards, if he does a lesson like that, will put up everybody's work on the wall, so when they're walking down the corridor, the eye will catch it and they will remember something from it. The heat release rate, or the megawatts, or the sealing jets, or the neutral planes, or whatever else it might be. And it was amazing to see something applied from totally not a kind of macho teaching style. It was very gentle but very, very efficient. So I was well impressed. Yeah, and James, I'm a big, big, big fan of James. I think he became my favorite educator in the fire behavior.
I've added him to my list because I would love to reach out to him. I think he'd be a fantastic guest. I was reading when I was preparing some notes for today. There was a good one where he does a 48-hour ride along with a crew. He's written an article on it. It's the Lost Fire Engineer. It's on a website there. I think he seems like a really, really lovely bloke. So I'm going to reach out to him because I'd love to have him on. Who else did you reach out to? Did you speak with when you're on your travels?
Well, I had the pleasure of finally meeting Andy Starnes. He's obviously a legend in his own lifetime.
Global expert in thermography.
Absolutely. And I've attended many of his online lectures, seminars, webinars, and all that, but I've never actually met him in person. And again, one of the nicest people around. Will do anything for you, will explain anything to you, and will take as much time as you need to understand it. And
some of the best conversations I had with him was actually around family, religion, and leadership, because most of the stuff that you see on social media is obviously about thermal imagery and incorrect applications and misinterpretation of the tool and the science. But actually, when you're able to get, not when you're able to, but when you get past that bit, that took up probably 60% of the initial part of our conversation. He's got some real golden nuggets about the toll of the job. I think his family wrote him a letter, or you give an example of someone that wrote him a letter. around.
don't know.
Yeah, it was written. Might not have been his family. It might have been just an example that he was giving. I apologize to Andy if I'm misremembering this, but it was something around like we've decided to set you free because you have so much to give to the world, and it's selfish that we're trying to hold you back from that. We know how much how much of a toll it takes on you trying to be there for us, and it's not really what you want to do. And it may not have been about his own personal life. It may. I apologize if I'm sharing some. I don't think I'm sharing something that we said off the podcast, but it is about like it's just a job.
He's a great, genuine person.
He's really nice.
A lot of times, his family, especially if it's like traveling further away, he will take his family with him.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's amazing to see.
All the stuff he's stayed in contact with me about has all been around welfare. To be honest with you, because of the stuff that I've gone through in the last year or two with challenges at work and divorce and just navigating a bit of a valley. All of the stuff he stayed in contact about, nothing to do with firefighting or technical work.
It's.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
He's a very religious person, but I remember when my daughter was probably 3-year-old at the time, and she had pneumonia and she was in hospital. And we were there for quite a while, and only one of her lungs was working and all that stuff. And he was the person who messaged me saying that he's going to keep her in his prayers and all that, you know. And it was very, very sweet. What a guy!
So you got to meet Andy.
Andy, absolutely, what a guy.
Who's Maria Kopel?
Oh, Maria Kopel.
Doctor, sorry.
Oh, yeah, let's not forget that. She is a academic, obviously, but also she is a fiery. I think she's working in some of the volunteer department somewhere.
I'll find out.
And she was working a lot on welfare aspects of firefighting, cancer, heart diseases, sleep deprivation and all that stuff. And one thing that everybody will love, you know, for many, many years, I was somehow proud of the fact that I've never slept in the fire station on a day shift. I never had a lunchtime nap, you know?
Oh, mate, I'm a napper all day.
And but now, officially, after Maria's lecture, I can go back to the guys and tell them that they were doing the right thing all along, you know, and because she was telling us how a short, she calls it a safety nap, how a short nap is beneficial to your performance.
NASA nap. That's where the most research has been done. NASA naps are 28 minutes. So that's what they encourage all of their astronauts and everything to do. 28 minutes is the sweet spot, supposedly. Anything below that, you start entering into another sleep cycle. And that works perfectly for me because you have an hour for lunch. I eat, and then I go half an hour and just close my eyes. I usually sit inverted and put my legs up on a wall.
Nice.
Just because I feel like that makes me feel better. And I've had leg surgery recently. And I just fall straight off, pillow behind my head. Feels nice on my lower back. 28 minutes, baby. But no, you have to become an expert napper. Yeah, I think, because then you almost get 2 cracks at the day. Because then you wake up so rejuvenated. But I also appreciate some people feel like they can't nap, and they wake up groggy.
I only feel worse after having a nap. So,
okay.
But also, you know, back to the kind of more serious aspect. She was talking a lot about suicide within the fire service, and it definitely hit home because we had one of our colleagues from a neighboring station died last month. We had another one died last week of cancer. So it's ever present in the fire service. And according to her study, she was presenting us with some statistics, and she kind of broke it down that the number, I can't remember the numbers exactly now, but it was more or less 50%. It was like 47, 48% of firefighters have thought about suicide.
Mm-hmm. Suicide ideation, yeah.
Yeah. And then it was like 20% actually thought how would they do it if they were to do it. And then maybe, I can't remember the numbers, but it was even smaller percentage that they actually done some preparation for that. Mm-hmm. And then even smaller percentage, maybe 2%, actually attempted it unsuccessfully. So it was eye-opener for all of us in that room when you hear that half the workforce at some point in their career considered suicide. And I think it's like a mental health emergency. And I can honestly say that I am definitely one of those 50%. However, I don't think my circumstances or my work led me to those circumstances. I don't think I would put that, although subconsciously maybe, but it was never.
I think you can't attribute to any one single factor.
Yeah.
With things like mental health. Yes, you're at work more than you're with your family, but it's less about what is the thing that's draining your cup sometimes, and more the fact sometimes you're not having anything fill it up. So you couldn't attribute the sort of breakdown, or you couldn't attribute the steady decline to any one single thing. But it's always the sort of collective. They always say like no snowflake blames itself for the storm. Do you know what I mean? No one single drop of rain blames itself for the flood. But collectively, all of these things lead people down that sort of fatal path. So I think our jobs, our employers, our colleagues, ourselves, I think we all have to take a little bit of that accountability cake and be willing to eat it, because I think it's something all of us can do.
Absolutely. And talking about it, I think I've been talking about it. Although what I've discovered recently, or maybe 6 months ago, my daughter had a suicidal episode, and what I've discovered that her generation, because they talk about it a lot, also it kind of went the other way, that she doesn't seem to think that's a nuclear option. It's like, oh yeah, that friend of mine has tried something, and that one, it just became like there's
depression porn out there. I'm not saying that's what your daughter, and I want to probably steer it away from your daughter, but suicide porn. There's websites out there that
it troubled me that because we live in that, and quite rightly so, it's encouraged to talk about suicide and mental health. Those young people don't maybe see it as a kind of permanent solution to temporary problem. That it is. It's they just see it as something that they hear about it from their friends or from whoever, and it's actually quite sad to see that she's not that fazed about it, and that's what really worried me. But yeah, definitely as far as fire service, and we definitely need to do more, and we need to speak about it, be open about it, and not maybe. I do it all the time where I'll go with one of my pals from the station for a beer, and we'll talk about stuff, and it definitely helps me a lot. I don't, maybe it doesn't help him, but it helps me a lot, and I do feel, obviously alcohol is not necessarily necessary to that, but I would definitely shout out to everybody who's struggling with their mental health, because it's not a nice thing, and we are always here, whether me or Pete, that you can always reach out.
Do you think that total segue, we'll get back onto some fire behavior in a second, but do you think there's an element of purpose and meaning, like belonging, coherence, that I think the next generation is struggling with? Because for centuries, young people inherited like fairly stable answers to things around who am I, what am I here for, religion, family, national identity, sexual identity, community, and the role that they should play in it. But the modern world seems to have shattered a lot of those. Like we tell kids, you can be anything, but we forget to tell them why being anything is worth it. Infinite choices. We give them like the invisible box of autonomy and freedom. It sounds like freedom, but it's more like psychological vertigo, because you don't really, if no one's telling you the worth in being anything or standing for something, or then it can be quite petrifying, I would imagine, for them. And I think social media platforms it's great to give people a voice, but it turns people into broadcasters, and everyone can be their own critic, and it perpetuates this comparison, cultural perfection that no one's really living that way, you know. And then it has this almost like low, steady state feeling of inadequacy in ourselves, which I think is really, really bad for all of us. I'm not sure through the passage of time we'll look back at social media and see it as net positive.
Yeah,
I think some people feel it's not net positive already.
You see what I'm struggling with, and kind of what you're saying about the higher purpose or some kind of values that we aspire to. And what really, and again, we don't want to get all political or anything, but it's, I've been told, as a youngster, and I still do that to my children, that the highest values are being a decent human being, being humble, being trying to live your life without having a negative impact on somebody else, add value to somebody else's life and all that stuff. And it's very hard for me to now live in the world where people, and I'll mention just one, but there's plenty of them, like a president of a well-known country, that they are successful people. They are at the peak of success, you could call it, by not following any of those attributes and things. Being a nuisance ultimately to the society gets you the highest accolades. And I am worried and scared of my kids asking me that question. Why do you think, why should I do all those things that you told me if clearly it's the other guy that
I can get there in the absence of all of them. Yeah. We used to encourage people through service or contribution or some sort of struggle that they would earn their place in society, but modern society offers a different analogy of it. Yeah. And without those somewhat symbolic thresholds, people can drift, unsure whether they should be doing these things and if they'll ever really become an adult, because they've not faced any of those adversities. But also seeing examples like you allude to, that actually I don't need to contribute, I don't need to struggle, I don't need to be of service to something.
Everything is up for debate now. There is no universal values that we can all share as positive. Everything that as they call it, footballification, that if you're not in my camp, then I don't like you, kind of thing. That's what really, really worries me about young people, and even any people really, that the standards that we were brought up with are shattered, the
scaffolding.
The kind of skeleton of our thinking and our being is no longer there, and everything's permitted. Everything's permitted, and as long as you get to where you want to be, then it doesn't matter how you'd get there.
But I think most of them never will, though, because they're going to have to go through some sort of challenge to get to wherever it is they want to be. But if they don't have a cultural scaffolding of some form to push against or climb that's going to give them a sense of being valued or necessary in the world, then they just end up being spectators of it. And I think that just perpetuates that feeling of insignificance. But anyway, what a fucking left turn. Sorry, everybody. Hopefully of value. Where should we go back to?
You know what I was thinking? I was actually, and this is me just thinking out loud, without much of a framework behind it. But this concept that fires today are different than fires of 40 years ago. You know, that fires are now developing much, much quicker because of more synthetic fuels, let alone lithium-ion batteries ever present in our society. We, over many, many, many years, developed systems to counter that, to counter the speed of fire development. You know, we've installed fire stations with sliding poles, and we started using blue lights and skipping red lights, and you know, we keep our leggings on our boots. You know, and how much time does that save us? You know, like how seconds, literally each one of those little things save us few seconds. You know, even any fire station around the world I go to, the trucks are always left with the doors open. You know, how much time does that save us? You know, that the act of opening the door to get in. You know, so it's all those, you could say these are marginal gains. These are our 1%. Yeah. And then, and with the current mindset,
but if efficiency and innovation stops when you get to the Fireground,
that's
all
exactly,
of those saved elements before.
what
It's
I'm
like
thinking.
we're fighting 2025 fires with 1980s tactics. Yet everything else around it has progressed,
evolved, and everything else inside our fire has evolved. You know, and we are basically, as soon as we turn up, then we're putting on the massive handbrake, and or at least as we are trained, because I know the guys and girls out there every day turning up to fires and deploy pretty quickly. However, how we are trained and how we train, especially incident commanders, what needs to be put in place, and probably Lars alludes to that a lot, although I disagree with him on quite a few aspects on that. But
I want to get on to his talk in a minute. I've got that pinned because there's some few takeaways that I actually really liked about his. But
you know, and there are certain things that, or me as an incident commander, I need to find the responsible person, and I need to ask this set of questions.
Yeah,
you know, and in my head, I am thinking, how valid are those questions? You know, if I am turning up with my crew and it's a fire, they are going in. You know, unless it's coming out
like it's going to immediately collapse.
Yeah, unless it's coming out of every opening, you know, they are going in. There's no debate, unless I'll speak to that person. So the valuable piece of information is if they're going to tell me there is a nuclear device in the kitchen, you know, or whatever, it's full of acetylene.
Yeah,
then maybe I will put a brake on it. However, what I want my guys to be, you know how Americans pre-plan a lot, like in FDNY, if you're a fourth pump attending, you know what you're going to do.
Yeah, I think people forget that when they think Americans just self-deploy everywhere. It looks like they self-deploy because then they may not be touching base with the incident commander as such, but they're not self-deploying. They're doing it from a playbook.
They've got a lot of pre-planned, pre-assigned tasks.
Yeah.
So kind of what we do in high rise, that I know that if I'm a third
they
truck,
know what the third or fourth engine's roles are going to be.
That's exactly it. And I'm kind of thinking along the lines that, can't we have that pre-planning of hazards, you know, the common hazards and control measures that we talk about. I can tell you before we even leave the station that there will be fire, there will be smoke, and there will be heat. There will be trip hazards, you know, and all those stuff. There'll be traffic probably. There could be darkness. And so let's agree that we've covered all those points. I don't have to tell you each time we turn up to a job that there could be smoky, hot flames, you know, like, or I need to now put it in my ARA, you know, because I've identified those risks. No, let's leave that for something that is unusual, something that, because the more we tell people, you know, the signs above the motorway that say, put your seatbelt on, you know, the more trivial they are, the more people tend to ignore them and not read them because we just get tired with, of course, it's nonsense. I'm not going to read it.
I had this when I was reviewing in a job I did recently, reviewing loads of our risk information for the sites that we went to. And if it was generic information, I was just ripping it out of documents. And I was working in alignment with my manager at the time, which was saying same to you, as like, this needs to be tactical, relevant, timely for that specific property. So don't do the performative thing where you signpost lots of national operational guidance links in the document for generic hazards. Even though they apply, they are, by their very name, generic. So it's not something I would need to specifically consider because of the uniqueness of this incident, property, establishment, whatever it might be. It's just something I expect a competent firefighter to already have a comprehension of.
Absolutely. And it's not omission from the incident commander that I did not brief them on those hazards.
No. Yeah.
Because they know that, because we already agreed on it prior to leaving the station, that this is what they need to be content with. And then we're getting into the realms of me asking questions of the responsible person, how long the fire's been burning for. It doesn't matter.
No.
Whatever the conditions I am observing.
What number are they going to say that's going to change your plan?
Is it
because
very short?
If they said 30 seconds and you looked at it and go, well, that doesn't look like 30 seconds. So irrelevant. You automatically just get, if they said 4 hours, you'd go, okay. What's the difference if they say 15 minutes versus 20 minutes? What is that going? When you push that question back and say to someone, what difference is that going to make to what you do
in the modern environment? Absolutely. In the modern environment, especially with the lithium-ion batteries in all the houses now, even if this person tells me that it's been 2 minutes because somehow we were just around the corner and we attended very quickly, I still don't have certainty that it won't be at flashover stage already. It could be. So that timestamp, if it's been burning and it's industrial and it's been burning for half an hour, then maybe I can start questioning, the structural stability,
the integrity of the building.
But in a domestic environment, it's very, very hard to make something of that question, and even stuff like how many people are inside. Yes, it will be useful if I'm getting more pumps. I need to know how many teams I'll need to get in. But in that first instance, I've got my own one team, which probably will be my fire attack team, regardless of how many people are in there. And that's their job. Yes, if they come across somebody, take them out. But don't delay life-saving action, i.e. putting the fire out, because you want to. And you mentioned that before. How much certain you need to be of the conditions before you actually make a decision? How much information do you need?
Because it's always a moving target anyway. Because by the time you've spent those 5 minutes getting that information, this might have changed. You know what I mean? While she's been doing that, it's just broken through the top floor window. So it's now ventilated or whatever.
Each of our decision-making models, the one the FCC uses, and there are an array of others. I'm not that keen on it, but I feel like it's too much, And I'm sometimes finding myself at incident thinking, instead of thinking, what's my next move here? I'm thinking, what was that next bit on that chart? On that chart thing, And so I don't know if you heard of it. I like to use the OODA model. It was developed by it's a guy, American fighter pilot in Vietnam, and he developed it. It's called OODA loop, and it's observe, orient, decide, and act, and then you go back to observe it.
That was taken from PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act, which is what they use in manufacturing. It's a Six Sigma cycle that you go through around validating information. They're all very similar. I'm familiar with the PDCA one, but it's the same thing. Plan versus observe.
He developed in Vietnam War, so in the 70s or 60s. But anyway, so each one of them has that aspect of being a loop. of you have to reevaluate your decisions.
Decision-making cyclic, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not, none of the decisions you're making, even in those first moments, is irreversible.
No.
You can always say, you know what, guys, I just heard some information that makes me think maybe this is not the best option. Let's come out. It's not admitting to being wrong. It's not a problem. And I think too many people worry that once I'll commit, then I've kind of stamped it and that's it. And if I tell them to come out, then it just proves that I was wrong. And I don't like that. No. I am big believer in that we can change our mind. What's the point of having a mind if we can't change it?
Have strong ideas loosely held is what I always try and have. You know what I mean? Whatever you're deciding on, move with purpose on it.
Absolutely.
But, don't make that the next hill you're willing to die on.
No.
You know what I mean? And when you present it with new information, if you'd have known different, you'd have done different. So
if there is additional information presented to me, I will again observe it, analyze it, and act on it. And if that act is, guys, let's come out, because there is a nuclear device in the kitchen. That's fine. That's fine. And so, I'm kind of, trying to get away from that fast intervention is a reckless intervention. I want it to be, if we're good, if we are well drilled, if we've done the reps, then we can act decisively, if not to say aggressively, because that's got the reckless connotations to it, but with purpose.
So, when we're talking about those pre-planned operations and initial actions, might be a nice place to insert something that Dan brought back in again from Braidwood's work around closing down the doors.
Yes.
Every door is a tactical choice. Opening it, closing it changes the supply and the flow path. And it's something we spoke about when we did the Braidwood episode. Is 1866 fire grows in direct proportion to the air supplied. That relationship there, Dan actually used the Blainer incident as an example for it, which I had to hang with him on because I'm not sure. It's actually Thornton's rule, isn't it? The fire energy output is proportional to the oxygen.
Per kilogram of oxygen, how much energy you can get per kilogram of oxygen.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with Thornton's rule before I looked it up. I was just going back off Braidwood's work. I'm assuming Thornton's rule came after the Braidwood's initial observations. Yeah, I didn't know it was directly turned into that. Do you think that should be a generic decision that should be assumed when we're arriving on incidents?
Well, I think it should be a conscious decision, whether I'm choosing, I don't like the term, but whether I'm choosing anti-ventilation, closing the door down, or actually venting actively or opening windows, doors, I want it to be conscious. I think as a default would be safer to start with anti-ventilation, so we do close the doors behind us. But if I know it's a small domestic and it's a small fire in the kitchen, I'm not that bothered if my crew will close the front door, because they'll be there in 20 seconds at that fire, from the front door to the room. So
he did give an example of where a crew, he shows a little video where a crew's setting up and they open the door and then head back to the entry control board to book in through and stuff like this. And you just see that fire coming out the first floor from what was initially, gently issuing smoke to then visible flame and sort of high turbulent smoke before they even get back to the door with the reel. And I wondered to myself how many times that happens. And equally, like you said about entering and closing it down afterwards, the door control that we see in other organizations
needs to be controlled. And UL, in all their studies, the one motive that always keeps coming back is the ventilation has to be coordinated with water application. You do not start venting unless you've got water on that fire. And that's, I think, the ultimate thing. And what really made me think about that back in the day, a few years ago, again, talking about traveling the world, when I met Michael Reich first time, the inventor of the smoke curtain.
Mhm.
He said that obviously smoke curtain was designed to keep the smoke out from escape routes, from stairwells in the tall buildings. And he actually said that all those architects and fire engineers are designing those buildings with the fire safety specifications in mind, and all those specifications are written for a reason. And then the fire brigade turns up, and we basically destroy that compartmentation by putting hoses through the.
Dan says it in a bit more extreme way when he goes, "I think it's getting worse after we get there." Which I think's maybe a bit too much of a stretch. But then to say that, it's a provocative term to say.
It's a provocative term, but I think our basic
our initial actions, if not conscious, are probably making it worse after we arrive. Yeah, unless we're doing it quickly as part of an intentional, aggressive plan that we're actually going to execute in a, with a bit of purpose. If we just start doing things like walking straight up, throwing the line out, opening the door, and then having a bit of a chat and getting a brief from the IC, those sorts of things, we just made it worse.
Yeah, absolutely. And or maybe opening some windows or doors just to have a look, If you're going to have a look, don't bother. Or close the door behind you. And also, I would like to say that if we're going to go kind of down those non-negotiable route, surely the most basic one should be, it shouldn't get worse after we arrive. And if it does, then we need to investigate that. We need to have a pretty robust ops assurance to be able to look at incidents, even if the incidents that we think went really well, especially the ones that went really well, because we tend to look at failure majority of time. And if something went wrong during incident, we'll be very robust with our operational assurance. However, let's look at the ones that went really well and analyze why they went well. Did they go well because we didn't stick with the procedure or policy? But that requires the kind of psychological safety of the staff to be able to admit that. Because I think at the moment, nobody in the organization would say, "Oh, you know what? We've got this fire out because I just got 2 guys in quickly." Or we made that grab because my first team went in without any firefighting media because they knew the person was just inside the door. Nobody's going to say that because they'll be scared of the repercussions. And
when we get past that first door, we're talking about every door being a tactical decision right from the get-go with the first one. It is something that Lars brought up in his presentation, and he said specifically around not opening closed doors in zero visibility. The argument that survivability is far more likely on either side of that door.
Absolutely.
If you don't just open it, and opening it without any clear tactical reason just wrecks the control of the flow path. And arguably, if you are following a flow path, you shouldn't be arbitrarily opening a door unless there's a tactical reason for you doing so. Just because you say, "Well, I want to search because there might be a casualty in there." Well, if there is one in there, there's a higher level of survivability if you just defend in place.
And again, going from UL studies and casualty survivability profiles, it's the closed door is the biggest aspect in safety, or the percentage of survivability goes significantly higher if they've got a closed door between them and the fire. The second aspect is elevation within the room and all that, and then another one is the proximity to the fire room itself. But that's why whether you are in the brigade that does directional searching or you're in the brigade that does the compartment clearance searching, both of those require us to open doors and go to not necessarily even affected parts of the building. I try to say to my guys that guys and girls, obviously, that if we open the front door and there's a lot of smoke coming out, don't go out opening other doors inside, because the fire is not in a closed room.
No.
It is somewhere with the door open.
It's already presenting some sort of bidirectional flow path, which is I should be able to go through without opening a single door and get to the fire. Otherwise, this gas wouldn't be pumping out.
Yeah. And conversely, if you open the front door and there's hardly any smoke coming out, but we've maybe seen a lot of smoke coming out of one window somewhere, or fire even coming out of the window, then you can be sure that that fire is behind closed doors somewhere. So don't go into the rooms that are open, and all that, because you're just wasting time. And again, if we want to go into the room that was closed, there could be a casualty hiding in there, conscious casualty hiding in there. The moment we open that door, this room fills with smoke. Now we are in there, and we always have the firefighting media. So now the hose is blocking the door. We can't close it again. Then panic sets in and all that. And we are in no position to get that person out quickly if the fire is still out, still burning.
I think I forget who it was. It might have been Lucas, actually. I think it was Lucas that said the most effective piece of work to do in the fire in terms of ventilation and control is to put the fire out. And it gets back to that if you're having an effect on it from the moment you open the door and you see an effect at the outlet, there shouldn't be anything between you and the fire. And it goes back to the combine harvester analogy of the most effective thing to do is switch off the combine harvester.
Yeah.
Eliminate, you know what I mean? But the idea of walking past a room that might have a casualty in it behind a closed door.
That's fine. Perfect. That's the best place for them.
But it feels weird to people, doesn't it?
Unless you've got specific information prior to entering that person is there. And you can get them out, I don't know, through the window without exposing them to that smoke in the hallway, then yeah, absolutely.
MSA are supporting us on today's podcast, and I chose to partner with them because I've been wearing this stuff for nearly 20 years, and they are the global leader in development, manufacture, and supply of incredible, safe products that really protect people, not just our communities out there, but also first responders, most importantly, all over the world. Get yourself over to MSA and have a look at it. The high-performance protective clothing for emergency services responders. They also partner with us on the UK Pink Firefighters. That's because we love them. The helmets with the reflective visor, the F1XF, absolutely epic helmet. And not forgetting how they improve firefighter safety through their connectivity in the connected firefighter platform. MSA are always pushing the envelope, and it's a real privilege to be able to continue to grow our partnership together. So whether it's your PPE, your bunker gear, your helmets, your SCBA, your thermal imaging, your Luna, or your portable gas detection, both of us know that this equipment needs to work. It needs to be high quality, reliable, and dependable in the moment. And that's why I use MSA, because they know what's at stake.
If you've got 100% info that somebody is there, go and get them. But other than that, I always, like I'm doing it every day. I say to my crews, if we go to domestic flooding, which we go to a lot, what do? We go into the flat and there is a water dripping through the ceiling. Do we start putting out pots and pans, catching that water, or do we go to the flat above and isolate the water supply? Identify the leak and isolate it. We getting rid of the hazard. We're getting rid of the problem, and then we can deal with everything that problem was kind of giving us headaches. But don't try to deal with other things as the problem is still ongoing. Because it's not going to get any better, and fire in its nature, if you give it more time, and you're now giving it more oxygen because you've put the door in behind you, it's going to get bigger, and then probably you will need that big line with you.
When we about ventilation, when we get to the compartment or the room itself, in the UK, I see a lot, and it happens where I am, like. We have to wait for confirmation from the incident commander before we vent.
Yeah.
Lars really brought that, he pushed on that point, is why do we wait for confirmation to vent? And who should be the person to make that call? And I really bought into the concept that decision should be made by the firefighters internally. And there's very little information really you could present me with externally that would change my mind, exception being if I was at a high rise and it might have a tremendous negative effect in terms of wind direction and reversing the flow path, blowtorch, blah blah blah. But in a standard domestic, I would feel very comfortable with them making that decision internally. I wouldn't see why I would ever challenge it from the outside.
Again,
it shouldn't need to be from me.
I would maybe, again, it all depends on buildings, but I would be quite happy for them to make that decision.
Yeah.
If they are competent, experienced firefighters and they've got a tick with them and they've got a water supply with them, then they could, obviously, once you start ventilating, some embers will start flaring up. But that's fine. That's why you've got your tick and you've got your water with you. So you can deal with that as you go along. But in my perfect world, they put water on the fire, knock it back, basically darken it down, open the window, branch out of the window, and vent. Hydraulic vent. And at the same time telling me fire's now under control or extinguished or whatever it is. And then I'm saying, get the fan on. And we're cooking with gas then. Basically, the property is then cleared within 2 minutes of smoke, and then we're searching it in full visibility, which then takes probably, 10th of the time that it would have searching it without any visibility.
I wouldn't even necessarily want to wait for them to put, they need to be at the point where they're putting water on, and so much of this is happening simultaneously, but as soon as they enter that room, and you see this operated really well at the National BA Challenge from some of the best teams there, is as soon as they're in that room and your BA1 sees the fire starts to hit it, it's not even really a conversation. Number 2 is looking for the vent, and they're not notifying anybody really, because if I followed it in on, let's argue that it was a completely closed down room, I followed it in on a bi-directional flow path, and I've got into that room. Number 1 hits. Number 2, as soon as you found that window, don't even tell anybody. Just open it up, because as soon as you open that up, everything that was pushing back down and everything was getting dark and pushing back down the route that I've just came through, it's now going to start flowing straight out.
Absolutely.
And everything in this room. Because if you don't do that, then you start to ingrain that belief that I'm applying lots of water, it's got nowhere to go, it's coming down on top of me. Because simultaneously, you do need to be identifying that vent and getting it straight open. And I don't think I really need to have any conversation.
Open as many as you can. Once you've got that clearance, whether you need a clearance from your OIC or not, once you've got that clearance, open as many as you can, especially if you're going to use the fan. The fans are much more powerful than anything we can, provide outlet-wise. So just open as much as you can. But, I would be comfortable with my crew doing that. However, I will put a couple of caveats in there, that if I am in the tenement, in the old town, 300-year-old tenement that's been modified hundreds of times and got millions of voids, probably I would just want to take those extra 5 minutes, make sure that it's not inside the walls, or, I've seen it before where we would have a fire in the ground floor flat, and there would be smoke coming out the 4th floor flat, because of all the empty walls and the floorboards are not meeting, so the smoke just seeping through the whole stair. So just to confirm that we've got no structural fire spread, i.e. it's not inside.
But how long is that going to take to confirm? My team's in there. I think that's going to take a little while to confirm while they're in there in continually reduced visibility whilst they're trying to fight this fire. And I'm saying, when they're going, right, I'm opening the window. No, wait. I just want people to check all the remaining flats on the 4th floor just to make sure we're getting no spread. Then they're ultimately never then going to open the window until post-fire.
If it's
because you're never going to, it's back to that decision making, you're never going to get all those answers. You can't confirm until you start cutting the wall away that you know it's not spread into the voids.
Yeah, I would say if it's a standard traditional building, brick or concrete, then knock yourself out. And people will say, "Oh, what if there is a secondary fire somewhere?" It's unlikely. I don't think I've been to many fires where there was 2 seats of fire, completely separate seats of fire.
It's very unlikely. When you're doing increased ventilation, it's going to show itself quickly.
True.
And because you've increased visibility, they're going to put that first fire out more quickly. And if there was a secondary seat, there was a secondary seat either way. I appreciate increasing ventilation, but also if you did stick a fan on and you then saw smoke start coming out of, the other side of the building or the other side of the land, guess what you do?
Yeah.
Switch the fan off.
Yeah.
You switch the fan off.
And that's
it's not a permanent decision.
I would encourage to open windows as opposed to break them, because then we still got the reversible effect of it.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know how other SOPs are, but I think they are similar. With my organization, if we're using a fan, the outlet needs to be covered by the covering jet. Which I think it's a complete waste of resources, especially that in my organization, we can only use the fan post fire control or post extinguishment. So the smoke won't even be hot anymore. There will be some temperature to it, but it won't be like... So
for people that don't understand, why are we covering the outlet with a jet?
So basically, if we were using it if we were using the fan for the purpose of fire attack, i.e. some people would call it PPA, positive pressure attack, or back in the day it was called phase 3 or...
Phase 3, yeah.
Phase 3. So
I always remember phase 1 gone. So
right.
Phase 1 is when the fire's out and the fire's finished.
Right.
Phase 3 is sending it in with the crew. Switch it on, go, and it's blowing as you're moving.
Yeah. So that's, if we're using the fan in that fashion, then, and we break the window, i.e. create an outlet in the room of the fire, there will be flames coming out of that room, because we're fanning it in on one end and we've created nice close outlet at the other end. And the fire's still going. We've not put any water on it. It will improve conditions in the building because it will be pushing a lot of that smoke out. But it's probably I wouldn't do it. However, that's where the covering jet off the outlet came in, because that can have effect on the neighboring building. It can have effect on the soffits and above the window. All sorts. It could have a Coanda effect into the window above. So that's where it came from. However, if your tactic only allows you, or your SOPs only allow you to ventilate or use a fan post-fire extinguishment, then what are we talking about? It's not going to have any effect.
Well, they're saying, what about if there's a fire gas ignition as it all starts to blow out? Well, that's going to be a very temporary thing. It's unlikely it's going to result in setting
and the
fire
wasn't out above. Then there must be something that ignited that fire, and the smoke will probably be already cool enough and probably saturated enough with steam, if you put water in that compartment already, that it will just not be flammable. It will be inert as such. So for me, it's such a waste of resources to, first of all, get that line to whatever side it needs to be on, and then to have a person sitting on it idly, because they definitely not going to do anything. And look at the smoke. Look at the smoke coming out of the window. I don't understand it. And especially now that we know that the fans can push a lot of air, so you could have 10 outlets. You can open 10 windows and it will still be fine. You'll still be pushing stuff out. So which window do I cover with my jet? So it's silly. Let's stop doing that.
I want to cycle back to the beginning of our conversation, because we've been going for about 2 hours already, and I know there's so much more we want to cover, because since we had this first conversation, we've had all of the visits around the UK, so there's so much more for us to dig through. But like I always say with all our guests, don't make good the enemy of perfect. So we're not going to manage to cover all of them, but we've spoken a little bit around Gerard. We've spoken a lot about Dan. Who's Lucas? Lucas
Garden. So Lucas has... I don't know if you've been on one of the events recently around the UK, whether in Scotland or Lancashire or wherever, and you met Lucas. Lucas Garden is a instructor. He's now back on the pumps, but for 10 years he's been instructor at the Sydney Fire Academy. He was working with John McDonough for many years. I have met him at a variety of places around the world. In Belgium, I had a course with him in Belgium before, in Poland, in the US. So recently he's done a lot of work in China. So he's been teaching in China. So he's a really, really well-established instructor. And he
Just an impressive human being as well. He's ex-para as well, isn't he?
Yes, he's ex-military. He doesn't drink
Very
alcohol.
man.
Doesn't drink alcohol, which impresses me even more.
I like it.
So it's
does a lot of boxing.
Great guy.
He's a very physically impressive man as well.
Yeah. So if you get a chance to ever meet him, go for a drink with him, not alcoholic drink. Then use that opportunity. If you see him presenting somewhere, jump on the opportunity, because he's definitely a man worth listening. Because even it was a nice dynamic, because John McDonough was supposed to be in the UK presenting, but there was a last minute kind of emergency, and Lucas stepped in to fill that gap. So he was presenting John's presentations. However, he was adding that little twist of his from his point of view of working with John for many, many years, being in the training center as those things were developed, and him teaching those things for many, many years. So he is like a proper somebody on a shop floor who can tell you how they implemented that in their training center, what was the reaction from the trainees or crews coming in, and all that stuff. So quality individual.
He made a variety of really good points, because like you say, he was reinterpreting a lot of John's initial works. John was unable to make it there. But one of the things he did speak about was around the fact that, long or short pulses should only be a method of progressing to the fire. Any short pulsing done outside of the compartment is solely a purpose for advancement.
Absolutely. As any of the gas cooling techniques are. So when Christian Rosander and Matt Gisselson, the pioneers in Sweden who came up with gas cooling, they never done any short pulses. They didn't have the terminology of short and long pulse. It was only pulsing, and all their pulses were about 1-2 seconds, which is quite long to what we were taught for many years. So now we are realizing that the short pulse that we were doing for many, many years is a bit useless. It doesn't project far enough, so we're only cooling a little bit of space in front of us, not far ahead where we want to progress to. Also, if you do have an outlet behind you, which normally would be front door, and it's open, whatever you're cooling in front of you, within a second is already behind you, because those convective currents take it above your head and out of the building. So basically you're cooling 1 meter, 2 meters in front of you, and before you even probably close that branch, it's already behind you. So you're not actually cooled anything.
It's a point that Lars made around any cooling outside of the fire compartment is temporary. It's purely an aid to advance, which reminded me a lot of, because Andy Starnes makes those points when you see the videos of the heat fluctuations as people make those applications. And it's something we very much saw with the gas cooling experiments when they proceed down that long corridor, and how temporary the effect is.
I think all of us have experienced a demo cell at one point or another, demo container. And ask yourself, when you're in your little units and you've done a little cooling, a couple of pulses, and then you go to the back of the queue and somebody else has have a go, by the time that person gets in a position, you already got flames above your head again. That's how temporary your cooling actually is. So you're supposed to cool, move into that space you cooled, cool, move into the space you cooled. So basically, Paul Grimwood actually likened gas cooling to ventilation, that you're basically doing it to enable you to progress, to get something, to get closer to the fire in that case, to get the position where you can actually, your reach of your stream can reach the fire. Don't go and stand over the fire before you put any water on it. Use the length of your stream from as far away as you can possibly get, and hide behind something even better. Again, times distance shielding, and put water on the fire.
I keep trying to perpetuate an analogy of a squeegee, but I don't think it's going to fit. I don't think it's going to land.
Nobody wants to adopt it, no?
Well, I've not heard anybody else repeat it, so it's probably not landing. But I always say, like,
tell me.
Well, if you've got a little leak in the corner and you're using a squeegee and you're pushing the water and you need to get over there to put the leak out, if you squeegee and then just stand there and talk about it for a minute, you stood in water. You use the squeegee, you push it, move, push, move, push, move, push, move, switch it off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I can totally see.
Because we can relate to, I thought about it when we were doing Scrub on a Saturday and we were just washing the bays out. Because especially if a few of you are working together, like you need to keep moving. You can't just stand there and talk about it. Otherwise, all the water just runs back. It was completely pointless what you just did. So I'm like, you push it, move, push, move, push, move, push, move, switch it off. Or push, move, flick it out the door.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, if you don't use that as a process for advancement, until you get to the tap, it's all been pointless. Do you know what I mean? You actually need to use. It's only a tool to progress with. But I think it might be a bit too knuckle dragger, or it might be a bit stupid. I'm sure it's full of holes.
But the thing is, for many years we were told that you're supposed to go there, put some pulses up, and then you make a decision. And then you've got three choices: either go forward, stay in place, and put some more pulses up, or reverse, if you like. So and I completely disagree with that. Like if you think, because that definition back in the day said if it improves, then go forward, and I don't know what that means. If it improves, like what are you expecting to see? It's going to be black. I can tell you that, and you don't be able to see anything. And by the time you put that branch down and put a tick up, probably those convective currents are back. So you really need to be on top of it, and basically it's like you say, it's cool, move. Yeah, get a tick from time to time to orientate yourself if you're still going in the right direction. But you cannot be wasting time and then have a debate with your pal, oh, what are we going to do here? Or what do you think about this? Oh, I've got a socket on the wall here, and there is a chair. No, just go for it. And the same thing. And now it just popped into my head. If you're a firefighting team, don't go searching under the tables and on top of beds. Go to the fire. That's your job. You are trying to isolate this problem we've got and switch it off, basically, to allow us to do all those things. Look inside the wardrobes and inside the washing machine where the child could squeeze themselves into. I don't know. Because for many, many years, I was trained, even if you're a firefighting team, you still go through this kind of search process pattern, and we just can't do that. You have to go and catch the fire as early as you can, and then your search will be so much more effective when there is no smoke in it, and then you can get teams in. Once you've got control of the fire or put the fire out, the second team that comes in searching, they can come in without firefighting media.
I was about to ask you that one, because that's obviously a question that we kicked off round two speaking with Dave, is should every team enter with a real Oro hose or an extinguishing media? Would it be dangerous? Would you put firefighters in?
Well,
a follow-up team, or because we compare the American models to what we do in the UK and the different tactics and the thought processes behind them.
I think in our SOP, in my organization, says that every single team should have firefighting media, unless the fire has been confirmed to be out, and that's fine. So in the little scenario that we just spoke about, if I've got a fire confirmation from my first BA team that now they've put the fire out, that's good enough for me. The search and rescue team can go without this hose. Whether I would put them in without the hose, obviously I wouldn't, because that would be against my policy. So, but
in your own fire service that you've designed, what would you tell them to do? If
we go back 15, probably more, a bit more years, we in my organizations back then, we used to be allowed that only a firefighting team does have a hose. The search and rescue teams doesn't have hose, and we never had a problem with it. As long as we put some caveats in place, i.e., the search and rescue team never goes ahead of firefighting team. But then you need to have the ability of the firefighting team, and they need to have the freedom to go straight to the fire. Because if they start going into the left and into the left room and then have a little sweep there and then come back, then my searching team is going to just get in the way, you know. But if they are going straight to the fire, so they always remaining ahead of anybody else, so that branch person is the protection for everything now that's behind him or her, then, you know, again, just historically, I've never heard of any problems that has caused, even our own organization.
Well, from the listener's perspective, I would present the argument, even though I largely support this concept, is, well, they haven't got a reference, Mike. How do they get out? You know, how we're just setting firefighters up here to get lost, surely.
Well, there are, again, because we're ignorant of teachings apart from our own, there are ways that other people around the world do it and still remain. Some people search off the hose line. So there is a team behind the firefighting team, and they remain in touch with the hose line, and they sweep that area that the hose is going through, but they somehow maintain the contact with the hose that's already laid. The second option, I think French do it. They've got like a kind of like our personal line, and they attach themselves to that hose line, and they kind of veer off it and then come back to it. It's like it's extendable lanyard basically, with like a kind of balls on it around it, so you can slide it up and down the hose as well. So they basically kind of anchor themselves to that hose and work off the hose. So again, you know, there are options, but I'm not against, you know, if I have to give my search and rescue team a hose reel, then so be it. That's fine. You know, I'm not dead against it if they are proficient with it and know how to use it. But at the same time,
we're also assuming they're going in at the same route as the fire team, because the Americans have the, is it VICE or VES, Vent Area Isolate Search, where they go in, where they go into a room that's not involved.
Yes.
And like you say, if a flow path doesn't dictate you go into that room, then leave the door closed. And you could search it externally. Open the window, break the window for them in a lot of cases. Enter it. If the door is open, they close it down, search the room, get back out, do another one. That's
a standard kind of. So vent enter search used to be vent enter search. Now it became vent enter isolate search. So basically, they are then breaking of the window doesn't matter as much because you're going to close the door within that compartment. So then that still leaves that compartment isolated from the main body of fire. So it doesn't really matter that you've broken that window. Obviously,
I think we're not even anywhere near it now.
I would never.
Well, we just don't have the foundational training. We don't teach crews to bail in and bail out of windows, and that's just so far from our tactics.
I think we need to look at things that we are already kind of doing. You know, we're close to it. Something like this.
Searching off the line as teams of... thing is, it would be separate teams, but on the same line. So whether you start classing them as teams of 4, teams of 6...
But then quite easily, you can say as we did back in the day, you just, as a search team, if there is still no visibility, but it will be soon because they will put water on the fire soon and they'll start opening the place up, you stay on the wall. You know, and that's nothing strange about that. You stay on the wall until there is visibility. And when they hear on the radio that the firefighting team is now in control of the fire and they're starting to vent, as I go around the room searching, I open every window I come to. And I kind of help venting as well and clearing the rooms that I'm searching.
Yeah.
That's what we were doing when I was in Belgium and we were training. That's what kind of we were doing. The firefighting team went to the ground floor. There was a fire on the ground floor, and they were dealing with it. And me and my BA partner, Belgian guy, we went upstairs. And again, some of our techniques were
above the fire.
Yeah, above the fire. But we know these guys downstairs are going to be 20 seconds to get to that fire.
Yeah.
You know? So we went above the fire. Not directly above the fire, because they were going into the front door into the left as we went into front door and the stairs were to the right. So we were kind of in the different part, you could say, of the building. But what we were doing, the guy would stay. Actually, we had a hose. We had a hose going upstairs as well.
Okay.
Because one of us would kind of, as they call it, anchor at the door. So open the door to the room, stay with the branch in that door, and the other person was going around the room searching it. And he would come back to the door. We know that's our door of entry because the other person is there. And then we go to the next door and we swap. Now he will have a little exercise and he will go around the room and I will hold the branch and sit in the doorway. Yeah. And again,
do you think we're really hamstring ourselves when I see some reaccreditations of people sprawled out on the floor, just trying to keep hands held with the person to reach the casualty that they can see? Because they're just married
they don't
to
want
this.
To take the
we can't let go of you. Yeah. Can't let go of you.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to let go of you. It's just that bit you go, oh, what this? We've missed something here.
Yeah,
we've gone too far.
But
we've limited. We're starting to be. We're punching the handbrake on their capability through a procedure.
Yeah, and if you don't think that you can write a policy that gives that freedom to your firefighters, then maybe your firefighters need more training, or they need
I think they're just scared. They're scared of not doing what you said, even though it feels like the right thing to do, and they feel perfectly safe doing it. I can see you.
And I understand.
You're 5 feet away.
And I understand that there is that level of worry or of fear in organizations that if they don't mandate everything and they don't spell it out exactly what you need to do, then somebody will do something stupid.
Somebody will die, and then we'll be held blame because I didn't tell you not to do it.
Yeah, exactly that. As opposed to, and I'm a big fan, and maybe because I'm not in that decision-making role, as in writing policies, but I'm a big fan of guidance, give me wide or doesn't matter wide or not kind of couple of boundaries that yes, A, you're not allowed to go inside without the hose line, B, whatever else, and within those boundaries I am allowed to do what my experience, what my training tells me is appropriate for those conditions, because after all I am the one inside. That's what kind of bugs me as well sometimes, that the person who is outside, the trained person to spot the hazards, probably the person who's good at IOSH or whatever qualification, is standing outside.
Yeah.
But the area with the majority of hazards is inside. And now I am left, let's say as a inexperienced firefighter, I am left inside by myself or with my partner. And we are making big decisions here. Do we progress? Does that look like it's going to collapse? Or does that fire is out of control now? We have to withdraw and all that stuff. There is nobody of kind of decision-making power to go there and analyze that. Like the Swedes, like when we took gas cooling from Swedes, they always have 3-man teams.
Yeah.
The first team was 3-man team. And your crew commander or your junior officer would be the guy with the set on and sitting at the door, analyzing conditions, looking at the color of the smoke coming out. As soon as he would see some whitish, steamy smoke, then he knows the water's going on the fire and all that stuff. We can then start opening that door and ventilating the place. And unfortunately, in our system, and I know it's not going to change, and I'm not advocating change it. No, I think it's all due to staffing. It should, how we approach fires. But I would like to see more crew commanders, even watch commanders going in. Once the incident grows big enough that the operational decisions, the tactical decisions are being made by area managers and whatever else, then by all means, I'd love to go in. To be able to feed them the information they maybe need to make their tactical plans, viable.
Do you think there is an element to getting rid of the entry control and switching it to that third-person door control?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't be so quick with it. What I would like to see, and again, this is my own personal private fire brigade. that is not subject to any litigations.
Yeah.
I would love to have the freedom to implement entry control when I deem it necessary. So let's say what we now call stage 1. Let's leave it at stage 1. But under stage 1, me as an incident event commander, I've got a freedom to have entry control or not have entry control.
Mm-hmm.
If I've only got 2 teams in and it's domestic property, I think I am capable within my cognitive load to know that I've got 2 teams in and kind of look after them from my position. If I'll go, let's say, above 2 or 3 or whatever number you want to put on it, probably 3 would be maximum I would be happy with. Then let's call that stage 2, above 3 teams. Then you have to have that in place, because then you're just getting too many spans of control, too much information to keep hold of, especially if you go 10 teams or whatever, in proper big incidents, then you definitely need something. But I would be quite happy for either my driver to take the tallies, and especially now with the telemetry, the boards do it themselves. The boards will track your pressure live. They will alert you for low pressures. They will alert you for a BA emergency and stuff. I think it would be silly not to look at it. We can basically be more efficient given the technology that's available. I'm not saying let's get rid of that person, because that would definitely not play well with the budget people.
I think it was an intentional. Wouldn't get rid of the person, just redeploy them. It was an important intentional lesson learned. It was Smithfield Market, wasn't it, in London, where we brought entry control in. And I think it was a massive advancement, essential tool at the time. But since technology has continued to improve beyond that, I think it's gotten so good that it's not something that we don't do. It's something that we do. Yeah. Well, we say it now, put one in when resources allow, but it's that we put that as a higher priority than other tasks that additional resources should be doing.
Even we don't have telemetry boards, in my service. And
you've only just got running water, haven't you? So it's a challenge.
Even
What's next? The wheel?
Get rid of horses, I say.
Get rid of them abacus. We've just got these calculators.
Even if we can, using the BA board, and I'm only putting the time out or time of whistle as this theoretically calculated abstract thing. It's completely useless. Nobody's whistle goes off at the time of whistle. We all different. We all breathe differently. We all got a different job on the Fireground. That some of us will work harder, some of us will work less. It's very I think I was in Poland, I think, or somewhere once, and they were trying to adopt something because they didn't have anything like that. Yeah. And they came up with a kind of like a make it yourself board. But then they mandated, and that was just like one station doing it on their own, like a little small scale thing. And they mandated that the BA teams should report their pressure every 7 minutes or whatever they call it.
Jesus Christ.
Yes. So that person can live update how much air they're using. That kind of crazy stuff. However, I can see why that would make sense, because for us to I've got 300 bars and I'll run out at that time, and then having no update everywhere in the middle, it's ridiculous. I'm never going to run out of the air at that time that you think I'm going to run out of air. We accepted that because that was best what we had, 50 years ago. And even stuff like radios, back then, probably they had some form of radios, but they were probably very unreliable, which is exactly the same as today. But the radios now are so much better. They built into masks, all that stuff. Yeah. We can communicate with that team constantly if we wanted to, which I hate, by the way.
Yeah,
talking
BA
to
teams
BA
hate it. I hate it. Ignore them.
Ignore them.
Yeah. You know where I am. You can see I'm using air. Shush.
Absolutely, yeah. And yeah. Again, I say, and that's John's thing again. All I'm asking my BA teams to do, tell me if you've done what I asked you to do, or tell me if you can't do it for some reason.
Yeah.
And that's all I want you to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know you're going to be in there and you're going to be searching and you're going to be changing levels, and because that's what I told you to do.
Yeah.
You know, and it's going to be smoky and hot, and hopefully you'll find a casualty or fire, you know, and you're going to be putting water on that fire. You know, that's fine. That's what I expect. Tell me if something really unexpected happens that I need to know about. So, yeah, entry control, not out, but definitely...
a thought for a little bit later.
Evolution, not revolution.
Down a resource. Yeah, there you go. Absolutely, as Dave was said. I want to be respectful of our time and of my missus, who's making some Sunday roast.
Ooh, lovely.
What is there any final pieces you want to close on? I know because you're the diligent sausage, you'll cycle back through this and go, I can't believe we didn't discuss X. We'll come back and we're going to have loads more chats. Is there any closing pieces that we want to make sure we get in before we wrap this one up and I don't delete it? We ain't doing round 3. We're just going to have to never talk again if I mess this one up.
You know, I will go back to the beginning, talking about travels and talking about contacts.
Please.
And so on the one hand, what I really like is that once you know those people, you will get their ear, you will get their advice, you can, like, for example, John McDonough obviously didn't manage to be here this time when he was in the UK. However, it's a 21st century. We got him up on the screen, you know, and he could still talk to our attendees just for a few moments to even have some interaction with them, you know. So, and then, like, when I was in America and I got to ride with FDNY, again, that was sorted by Gerard, who sorted me out with somebody, you know. So it's all, it just then spirals out into other things, other opportunities that are available to you, and other offers. Somebody will invite you for some event. Somebody will mention it to you, you know, and it's like never ending. I know it's, once you jump into that whirlwind, it's very difficult to stop.
Oh, yeah.
And you want to do everything, and your family suffers. And
the growing list of people I haven't spoken to is just like a club that I beat myself over the head with non-stop.
And I've had so many offers over the year. Oh, just come to us, and you can do ride-alongs with us, or we do some burns together, or whatever, you know. And you actually finding yourself having too much offers to kind of, you know, fulfill.
What you do
them.
get is a massive sense of purpose.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, massive sense of purpose.
And despite you see those people, probably I haven't seen Gerard for a couple of years now when he came over, but you still feel like a brother. You know, it feels like it's a part of the family, despite you've not really, in grand scheme of things, not spent that much time with them.
No.
But because you were playing with fire with them, it kind of makes you, you know, friends for life.
Oh, those bonds forge hard.
Yeah.
We actually got a workout in together before he went away because we said we were always going to do it and all that sort of stuff.
Unfortunately, I've seen your topless pictures. So
It wasn't. But we got in there and we just did like a 40-minute, every minute on the minute.
Yeah.
And we just sat in the changing rooms afterwards and like 30 minutes just talking war stories and life and friends and all this sort of stuff. And a lot of people that are really interested in a lot of this sort of stuff tend to feel a little bit lonely in the organizations that they work with and can feel a little bit unheard, a little bit like a freak. And connecting with people like that, as we both do on a regular basis, just I think reinforces that pursuit.
Absolutely.
You know, and gives you that hope.
And just that one last sentence, and you had Frank Lieb from FDNY on the podcast. He's a great guy. And he often talks about do something fire related every day. And I actually had one firefighter from my watch asking me, kind of in disbelief, do you do something fire every day? And I kind of had to pause and think about it, because I think what he interprets as doing something fire as listening to a lecture every day, you know, which obviously isn't the case.
No.
However, I probably do something fire related every day. I will listen to a podcast on the way to work. I will scroll through social media and notice some article and quickly just have a look through it. It's not that you need to, set aside an hour or two every day to develop yourself and make yourself better. 5 minutes will do, interesting video and of some fire and what is the ventilation profile here? What does that tell me? Just those little things add over time. And as we mentioned, if you spend 10,000 hours or something, you'll be decent at it,
I do it whenever, even I'm driving around and I've dropped my daughter off somewhere or something like that. I'll just sit there and I'll look at it and go, what would I do if this was on fire? What would I do? You spot hydrants when you drive in places. You park your car at a multi-story car park, and as you're walking down the stairs, you're glancing over at the risers and you're thinking about, those first 2 floors are actually fully encompassed, but these top 3 floors are open air. And you start to think about the different things. You go, would I put foam through that riser? How beneficial would it be?
That was exactly what happened last week when Gerard and Lucas were here and we were walking around the city. And it was like, so what would you do here? How do you approach this? Do you park over there, or do you stretch the line to this door, or does that
where would I put the Alp?
Yeah,
I'm not even sure a turntable ladder would actually work here.
Have a riser? Oh no, it doesn't. So what do you do if it doesn't have a all that stuff? It's like a little walking tour of the city, and analyzing. I know they do that in New York. There is a guy who does like fire-related walking tours where they talk about unusual buildings, layouts, and he points things out, or this building has this and all that. Maybe I'm not as nerdy as that, but it's so beneficial, and and it doesn't have to be formal. You don't have to sit and do UL e-learning module. Although I do that from time to time, but just do something that gives you a bit of pleasure.
When you're curious, you'll see it in all things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think about it with my training. Every time I go into the gym, I think about, what am I doing, and is it going to make the boat go faster? Am I just lifting or exercising for my ego, or is it related to something that's going to benefit me in my life? So whether that be my long-term physical health and the things I want to do with my children, is it relatable to the job and how I still want to be in it in another 20 years' time? And is the thing I'm about to do, or why am I going to do that 1 rep max bench press just to massage my ego when I've already got a bad shoulder? I've torn my pec off before, and do you know what I mean? So that helps me validate the decisions that I'm making just in my day-to-day life. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I think half the time we major in minor things. We spend most of our days, we invest our time in things that are not going to take any of our stated goals forward. They're not going to help you in your relationships with your partner. They're not going to help you in your career. And
I'm trying to wean myself off my phone now, because it steals so much time off me every day.
I have that, and I do identify them as thieves. I go, you fucker, you got me.
Yeah,
you tempted me in with
every
the thing,
day.
and you just stole so much of my life.
And I feel so frustrated at the end of the day that, or like, no, I'm not going to do it tomorrow. Like, and then I'm doing the same thing, and it's. But at least I'm conscious of it, and I'm trying to change it. I'm not perfect.
That's the first step.
It's not going to happen overnight, but I am trying.
Well, look, brother, we will get this one out quick. So next week, people won't know we're recording on a Sunday. We've got the 2 episodes from the National BA Challenge coming out. Then we're going to pump out, might drop yours after that, and then before all of the Lancashire ones. And then after that, we'll get back to the 20-something episodes that we've got coming out. But I always love us reconnecting just to get your thoughts, not that you're the be-all and end-all of anything, but just your thoughts and interpretation. When we go out and see these shiny things, we're like, okay, but how do they intersect with what we're currently doing? Because otherwise, you've just seen a really exciting thing, but it's not really going to be able to plug into our current structure unless we think of how the UK Fire and Rescue Service would interpret that. And that's what really excites me about Dan's work and the work he's doing that's being supported by many members of our community in rewriting some of the UK doctrine that's hopefully we're going to see the ripples of these conversations and this work start to feed out into the wider sector in the next 2 years.
Yeah, everything's intertwined, and I had somebody from abroad, I can't remember who it was, visiting, and recently they said, the first thing I would do is get rid of the stupid couplings you've got. and because they are stupid and they get snagged on every single thing you pull them through. Yeah. But that's impossible. It's never going to happen. It's a British standard coupling, and it's in every building, on every high rise or dry riser and all that. It's never going to happen. So let's park that one, and concentrate on other things that we can actually influence.
Effort reward matrix.
Exactly. Exactly.
What are some of these things? And that's one when, just to close, I'm not going to keep jumping into stuff, but when there was someone in the audience questioning Dan's work and said, where are we going to get the investment for this? And we were just talking about one element about transitional attack. And I just piped up out the audience because I couldn't fucking sit on my hands any longer. And I just said, but you already do training on a daily basis. And, using a jet externally is a recognized practice. You don't need any investment for that.
Yeah.
You just need to decide to change what you're going to do with your crews on a day. You don't even need to ask the service's permission. You're not doing anything dangerous.
No.
It's just spend some time embedding this idea to make it muscle memory when someone turns up. People are waiting for other people to give them permission. They're waiting for someone else to send them a document that says, okay, go. And I'm like, you don't need that.
And out of all the things we're discussing, probably that's the easy win,
Yeah.
Just point that branch upwards, turn it on the jet, and smack that off the ceiling.
It's already lying there. It's lying there, inviting you to do it.
Yeah.
You just
I like how people are scared to use that covering jet or safety jet. Oh, because that's a safe. No. I'll use it here, and if I need to use it over there, then I'll point it that way. It's fine.
Seek forgiveness, not permission. I'm always a big fan. Be less impressed and more involved. Just start doing it. But right, brother. Send my love to all of the family, to your daughter, to your good lady, to everybody else as well.
Same to you.
And I really look forward to spending some more time together soon.
Oh, can't wait.
See you, brother.
Take care.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Hope you took a lot away from that episode. We started the Firefighters podcast to develop, inspire, connect, motivate, represent, and most importantly, celebrate the world of incredible emergency services operators and the wider sector through this series of wide-ranging conversations. We really love creating this podcast and bringing it to so many people. Did you know you can also find these on YouTube? We do a lot of video podcasts now. You can head over to our YouTube page and follow, subscribe there. And as a final ask from us, whatever platform you're on, please rate the podcast. It really helps us as a key performance indicator to reach more and more people. I've been your host, Pete Wakefield. This has been the Firefighters Podcast. And wherever you are in the world, please stay safe, be happy, live with intention, and where possible, please remember and support your firefighters and first responders. I'll see you next time.